In just one breath, everyone felt dizzy, their eyes dim, their breath weakened, their knees softened, and they fell to the ground. At the same time, fear began to spread in their hearts. They tried their best to get rid of this state, but they were powerless. At this time, Zhou Chengyi emerged from under the bed with a calm look. Because he used the second-level magic weapon, the soul-calming bell, his face was extremely pale at this moment. Looking at the kneeling thing in front of him, his eyes were full of confusion and caution, and at the same time, there was deep worry. Shenline Mountain was invaded by outsiders. In addition to shock, Zhou Chengyi was angry. This completely secret family residence, unknown to outsiders, was Zhou Jia's last trump card and the last chance to pass on the bloodline. It should have protected the safety of the Zhou family members in the next few decades, and reproduced and restored its foundation. But in just 2 years, it was discovered by outsiders. Even the group of people in front of him were neither the Ma family nor the Chen family, but a mysterious force that he didn't know at all. And with just a cursory glance, he could sense the aura of 4 Qi refining level 9 masters. This kind of strength is definitely not something the Zhou family can resist now. Zhou Chengyi was cautious and secretly kept a hand, using a set of formations to be on guard, so he avoided being ambushed to death. Otherwise, he would have become a dead soul under the knife. Zhou Chengyi looked solemn, not daring to be careless. He quickly unsheathed the magic sword in his hand and stabbed directly at the seriously injured people, trying to get rid of this person directly. The effect of the second-level soul-suppressing bell is enough to make the 9th-level Qi refining cultivator lose the ability to move, and the power is terrible. At this juncture, the Qi family members lying on the ground also showed a look of horror. They didn't expect that the Zhou family actually had such a deep foundation, and they directly injured 4 people with just a second-level magic weapon. However, Zhou Chengyi was only at the 9th level of Qi refining after all, and the power of the soul-suppressing bell he used was limited, and he couldn't kill with one blow. The Qi family monk who knelt on the ground gritted his teeth, took out a bottle of pills, and stuffed it into his mouth with all his strength. At the same time, a stack of talismans was quickly taken out of the storage bag and thrown towards Zhou Chengyi. Zhou Chengyi's face changed, and he quickly retreated when he felt the powerful power in the talisman. After taking the pills, the few people recovered obviously quickly, and their minds regained a bit of clarity. Zhou Chengyi was extremely surprised, and he probably guessed that the pills they took should be extremely precious pills for treating mental injuries. In just a moment, the Qi family members recovered most of their health. The talismans were also the first grade, Fire Talisman, and Golden Sword Talisman. The terrifying power was released in the air, like a spell cast by a 9th-level Qi refining expert, and it instantly exploded in the narrow cave. The Qi family cooperated well. At the moment when the talisman exploded, they used another first-grade, giant rock talisman, to block in front of everyone to prevent their own attacks from hurting themselves. Zhou Chengyi's pupils shrank suddenly, and he immediately raised his arms to resist. Compared with the foundation, the Zhou family had no other means except for the few remaining second-grade magic tools. No elixir, no talisman, and not even a decent armor magic tool. Moreover, Zhou Chengyi had just used the soul-calming bell, and most of his mana was consumed. His breath was already weak. How could he resist multiple first-grade talismans? Without any surprise, he rushed through the entire cave with the golden light. The powerful force of the talisman bombarded Zhou Chengyi and directly repelled him to the stone wall behind him. A mouthful of blood spurted out, and Zhou Chengyi's breath suddenly became weak. The flames burned his chest, and a large piece of black charcoal appeared. But the offensive is far from over. The Qi family came as a whole team, with 4 9th-level Qi refining masters and 5 8th-level Qi refining masters. Even Qi Yunheng, the weakest, has reached the 7th level of Qi refining. With mutual cooperation, how could Zhou Chengyi easily resist? However, after the first round of talisman bombardment, the Qi family did not take the initiative to attack. After all, they still remembered the power of the soul-calming bell. So, they took out several first-level top-grade talismans again and looked at Zhou Chengyi with ferocious eyes. Old thing, I didn't expect you to be so smart. You dared to hide in the dark and attack. Unfortunately, you will die today. After that, the 2 golden sword talismans were used again. 2 golden long swords flashing with sharp edges, wrapped in sharp metallic aura, stabbed forward fiercely. Puff, puff. Passing through the smoke from the burning fire, the 2 golden swords pierced Zhou Chengyi's legs at an unstoppable speed without any surprise. The position was extremely tricky. piercing directly through the kneecap and nailing it to the ground. Ah, 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 ah. Even Zhou Chengyi, who was determined, couldn't help but howl in pain at this moment. His eyes were like a ferocious beast, staring at the people in front of him. The two golden sword talismans crippled his legs and made him unable to get up from the ground. Even his magic power was exhausted at this time, and his old body collapsed to the ground, with scars left by the burning all over his body, and the stab wounds made him bleed profusely. The head of the Zhou family was unable to resist the siege of many ninth-level qi refining masters, and he was still exhausted. But his eyes were still as dark as the abyss, and the strong hatred condensed into substance, as if he wanted to tear the person in front of him to pieces. The noise of the battle eventually attracted the attention of other masters. The dark and silent Shenline Mountain was gradually broken, and lights began to light up. There were tribesmen rushing here. Looking at the situation outside the cave, Zhou Chengyi's eyes fluctuated slightly, as if he saw countless tribesmen rushing to the sea of fire. He opened and closed his mouth slightly, as if he wanted to stop them, but the loss of a large amount of blood had made him unable to move, and his vicious and hateful eyes gradually dimmed. In the end, he only saw a young man walk out of the enemy and ordered in an extremely calm voice, "Sixth Elder, you are responsible for cleaning up these small fish, leaving a few core members, and killing the rest." With despair and unwillingness, Zhou Chengyi's consciousness slowly sank, and he could no longer see the scene in front of him. Only the voice in his ear remained. "Master. Grandpa, are you okay? Who is it? Ah, bastard. The massacre has begun." The killing that did not happen in Tianqi Mountain finally appeared in Shenline Mountain a year later. The sixth elder of the Qi family stood alone, holding a flaming blade, and slashed at the Zhou family members around him. The raging fire made the entire deep forest mountain glow with fire, and the smell of blood filled the air. At this moment, the Zhou family members already knew what had happened. An unknown enemy broke into the deep forest mountain, the head of the Zhou family was attacked, his life or death was uncertain, and the enemy started a massacre. Every word was like a cold blade, cutting open the heart of every Zhou family member, and rudely tearing open the wound that had been gradually healed. First it was Tianqi Mountain, then Shenline Mountain. 2 consecutive disasters crushed the Zhou family, which had been passed down for 100 years. Looking at the sky full of flames and the blood flowing like a river, an elderly Zhou family monk fell to the ground, howling and roaring to the sky, and the sad cry echoed in this land. "Why are you so unfair? My Zhou family has fallen to such a point, why don't you let us go? God wants to destroy my Zhou family. God wants to destroy my family. Goddamn God, you all deserve to die. All deserve to die." Despair and anger filled everyone's heart. Death may not be terrible at this moment, because people's hearts have been scattered, beliefs have been destroyed, and there is no greater sorrow than the death of the heart. A large number of clansmen came forward one after another, but it had no effect at all. Just a strong man in the early 9th level killed them and made them bleed like a river. Zhou Daoqi still held the last hope. His fat body ran in Shenline Mountain, trying his best to launch a huge crossbow. This is the 2nd level magic weapon that the Zhou family has spent all their efforts to create, the giant ridge bow. Zhou Daoqi was sweating profusely. His clothes were soaked with sweat, his pupils were full of bloodshot, and his honest face was full of ferocity and determination at the moment. He input all his spiritual energy into the magic weapon almost without reservation, trying to activate this 2nd level magic weapon with the cultivation of the 7th level of weapon refining. Because of his talent, the current situation faced by the Zhou family can only be completely reversed by this magic weapon with power comparable to that of a foundation building master. When he transferred all his spiritual energy to the giant ridge bow, the entire magic weapon emitted a strong light, and a terrifying aura spread instantly. At this moment, the Qi family cultivators also immediately sensed the crisis of death, like a sharp sword directly at their eyebrows, and would take their lives in the next moment. "What is this? 6th Elder, be careful, it's another terrible 2nd level magic weapon. Hide in the cave quickly. Such a terrifying power, it's worthy of being an old family with 100 years of inheritance, the foundation is really rich." The Zhou family members who were kneeling and crying seemed to see hope at this moment, and their eyes all looked over. Relying on his in-depth understanding of magic weapons, Zhou Daoqi actually used the strength of the 7th level of Qi refining to reveal the edge of the giant ridge bow. However, in the hopeful eyes of the Zhou family members, and the terrified eyes of the Qi family. After Zhou Daoqi transferred all the spiritual energy in his body, he finally knelt on the ground with a snap. And the giant ridge bow, in front of him, after just a slight flash of light, dimmed again. Even though he has excellent talent and a deep understanding of the principles of magic weapons, he is only a cultivator of the 7th level of chi refining after all. Not to mention the 7th level of chi refining. Even if a strong man of the 9th level of chi refining came, it is highly likely that he would not be able to use this heavy weapon by himself. Zhou Daoqi clenched his teeth and fell to the ground in despair. His fat body seemed to be drained at this moment. At the same time, the hope of all Zhou family members was also drained. The Qi family hiding in the cave was stunned when they saw this scene. Then they burst into sharp laughter. Ha ha ha, look at that fat guy. He wants to activate the 2nd level magic weapon with this little strength. It's really funny. Damn dog, I was so scared, but in the end he turned out to be a wimp. Tisk tisk tisk, they even specially launched a 2nd level magic weapon for us. The Zhou family is really good people. Indeed, I have decided to kill only the male cultivators of the Zhou family, and take the female cultivators back for breeding. Breeding, with his Zhou family's garbage bloodline, is it worthy of combining with my Qi family? It's just polluting our bloodline. Hee hee, then don't take it back. Just sell it on the way. It's also a sum of spirit stones. Quote. The deepest evil and desire of human nature, vented unscrupulously at this moment, is aggression and massacre, without any humanity. When one side has an absolute advantage, the status of the two sides is no longer equal. If one side is a human, the other side is a livestock. The sharp ridicule of the Qi family cultivator pierced the heart of every member of the Zhou family. Qi Yunheng also looked fierce and said, Elders, please act as soon as possible. Don't kill those who can be sold first, and don't leave any men alive. There is also a 9th level Qi refining strongman, go and get rid of him first to prevent future troubles. Quote. No problem, but you have to kill the fat man first, and the 2nd level magic weapon can't be damaged. Quote. As he spoke, a 9th level Qi refining warrior stepped forward, sneered at Zhou Daoqi who was lying on the ground, and was about to end his life. As a member of the Zhou family, seeing this scene, he gritted his teeth and tried his best to stop it. Since coming to Shenline Mountain, all the Zhou family members have reached a consensus, that is, the Dao generation of the Zhou family will be the hope of the future. Especially Zhou Daobai, Zhou Daoqi, and Zhou Daocheng. Everyone understands that they are the future, the inheritance, and the hope of the final rise. An elderly Zhou family member rushed forward with all his strength. When the blade fell, he fearlessly pounced on the Qi family monk. Using his own flesh and blood, he hugged the blade, allowing his body to be cut, and did not step back. The Qi family elder did not react much, but just laughed coldly, then lifted the figure, and then chopped it down again. Then another figure, with bright red blood, bloomed in the air. Zhou Daoqi, who was lying on the ground helplessly, stared blankly at the warm corpse lying on him, with hot blood covering his body, so hot, but so cold. The hatred in his pupils was buried at this moment, leaving only a blank look, looking at the familiar face in front of him without focus. Thinking seemed to stop at this moment. The Qi family monks were not in a hurry to kill Zhou Daoqi, and seemed to enjoy the pleasure of playing with human lives, casually hacking and killing the Zhou family members who rushed over. Tisk tisk tisk, I didn't expect there would be such a good thing, someone actually threw himself on the knife. Forget it, don't play, kill them all. Someone reminded. Whatever, die, dead fat man. Then, just as his voice fell, a voice as cold as a cold blade came from behind. Beasts, you deserve to die. In an instant, the temperature in the air seemed to drop, as if falling into a cold pond. Under the eyes of everyone, a slender figure slowly walked from a distance. In the firelight, the shadow was extremely long, with a strong sense of oppression and deterrence. This is Daobai, Daobai, go. You are at the 9th level of Qi refining. They will never catch you. Hurry up and find Daocheng, and save the fire for my Zhou family. The remaining clansmen, the moment they saw Zhou Daobai appear, their dim eyes ignited with light. The hoarse roars continued to sound, constantly urging Zhou Daobai to leave. This is what they did not notice. Zhou Daobai, who had an elegant face, had his eyes dyed blood red at this moment, the murderous intent in his eyes condensed into substance, and the violent aura spread out, like a ferocious beast. At the same time, there was his obscure and powerful aura. You are the remaining 9th level Qi refining. An elder of the Qi family just opened his mouth to speak, but in the next second, a pair of fists suddenly attacked, piercing through the heart directly, and tore the body apart with the power of the explosion alone. Qi Yunheng saw this scene, his pupils suddenly contracted, and he stepped back in horror. At the same time, he screamed, foundation building powerhouse. After more than half a year, Zhou Daobai has been in seclusion and practicing, trying to break through the level that everyone dreams of. But there is always a threshold blocking the way. Even if it is infinitely close to breaking through, it can never break through the last layer of membrane. Just now, the bloody smell and roar of Shenline Mountain entered his brain, stimulating every nerve. Feeling the death of one tribe member after another, it seems that the most important thing in life is disappearing. The originally calm mood was disturbed at this moment, and it was at this moment that he seemed to have found the most fundamental purpose of becoming stronger. He needed stronger strength, the power to protect everything, the qualification to bear all the burdens, and more importantly, to take over the inheritance from his ancestors and restore the glory of the family. At the last moment, he successfully broke through and reached the foundation building. Not good. Everyone retreat quickly. This person just broke through the foundation building. Along with the horrified shouts of the Qi family, Zhou Daobai stepped forward, murderous intent emerged in his eyes, and killed the Qi family without hesitation. At this moment, even the 9th-level foundation building strongman had no ability to resist at all, and was slapped to the ground with a slap, seriously injured. At the critical moment, Qi Yunheng looked at the slap that came, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Zhou Daobai took the lead in dealing with the 9th-level Qi refining strongman. With just 3 slaps, 3 people were seriously injured and lying on the ground unable to move. And just when the slap hit the 4th person, the 3rd elder of the Qi family, who was the strongest, actually took out a talisman from his arms. Then, with Zhou Daobai frowning, he threw it forward fiercely. 2nd-level talismans. Zhou Daobai had never thought that these people actually had 2nd-level talismans. The weakest 2nd-level talisman was equivalent to a full-strength attack from a 2nd-level cultivator. He had just broken through, and his realm was not even stable yet, so it was difficult to resist. Zhou Daocheng quickly retreated after just a moment of thinking. But it was just this moment of opportunity. The 3rd elder of the Qi family gritted his teeth, grabbed Qi Yunheng next to him, and quickly fled to the deep forest. After only a few dozen meters, a cold voice came from behind. Killing my Zhou family members and invading my Zhou family's residence, do you want to leave like this? The 3rd elder of the Qi family had a ferocious face. Senior, why are you so aggressive? I just broke through the foundation building. If you kill us, you will not have a good result. Zhou Daobai sneered. Aggressive, how dare you say this? As he said that, he quickly moved forward at a rapid speed, trying to quickly get rid of the 2 people. Seeing that the other party was unwilling to stop, Qi Yunheng, who was held in his arms, cruelly took out a bottle of pills from his arms. He said, 3rd elder, this is the 2nd-level speed pill my father gave me. Taking it can reach the speed of the foundation building period. Seeing this, the 3rd elder's eyes suddenly lit up and quickly stuffed it into his mouth. As the medicinal power was quickly absorbed, the speed of the Qi family elder increased rapidly, and in an instant he reached the foundation building level. Zhou Daobai's face was calm. With a 2nd-level pill, could he really escape from the hands of a foundation building strongman? The time that the medicinal power can last is at most a quarter of an hour. Once this time is over, the 2 will surely die. Just as Zhou Daobai wanted to chase and kill, Zhou Daoqi's weak voice came from behind. Don't chase, big brother, the head of the family, and the clansman. Quote. This call also made Zhou Daobai, who was furious, regain some rationality. After taking a deep breath, he finally stopped. Turning his head to look at the fire all over the mountain, a scene of corpses everywhere and blood flowing like a river, his heart felt like a huge weight was pressing down on him. He slammed his palm on the ground and clenched his teeth tightly. If I had broken through earlier, how could this happen? Quote. It's a pity that changes in the world can't be as people wish. Zhou Daobai looked at the devastation, and there were not many tribesmen left. At Tiamu Mountain, the family lost 3 elders and dozens of tribesmen. When buying the foundation building pill, almost all the elders' lives and most of the elderly tribesmen were sacrificed. And today's massacre almost dug up the roots of the Zhou family, slaughtering all the Chong, Shou, and some of the older Dao generations. Now, there are only a few Shou and the younger Dao generations left. Looking around, there are not even 10 living tribesmen. Zhou Daobai walked up to Zhou Daoqi, looked at his 4th brother who was buried deep under the bodies of the tribesmen with dull eyes, and slowly pulled him out. The chubby Zhou Daoqi was not injured under the protection of the tribesmen, but his pupils were like those of a dead person, without any light. Brother, the head of the family. Don't worry, leave it to me. Quote. As the pillar of everyone present, Zhou Daobai showed a mature enough mind. He took out the remaining pills in the storehouse and distributed them all to the few remaining masters for healing. At the same time, he gathered all the seriously injured and dying tribesmen together for unified treatment. Fortunately, the tribe leader Zhou Chengyi was seriously injured, but he did not die. It was just that his legs were nailed to the ground, and he had fainted early due to excessive bleeding, and now he was unconscious. When Zhou Daobai gathered all the surviving masters together, he found that there were only 13 of them. 1 was from the Chong generation, 3 were from the Shou generation, and 9 were from the Dao generation. Brother, what should we do next? Zhou Daoqi asked weakly. Zhou Daobai's eyes were heavy. We can't stay in Shenline Mountain anymore. This force can easily send out 4 9th-level Qi refining masters. They must have foundation building masters and will definitely come again. Moreover, I have already felt that the 2nd-level monster nearby is ready to move. If we don't leave, things will be even more troublesome. Zhou Daoqi frowned and said, even if you break through to the foundation building stage, you can't stabilize the situation. I can stabilize it, but the Zhou family can't stabilize it. A trace of sadness appeared in Zhou Daobai's eyes. Zhou Daoqi was stunned, and then he understood what his brother meant. What they want is not only foundation building masters, but also peace. They need a stable and safe environment to restore the vitality of the Zhou family, not another war. If another master dies, the Zhou family will be completely wiped out. And Shenline Mountain is no longer safe. On the one hand, there are enemies who have found this place, and no one can be sure whether they will come again. On the other hand, there are 2nd-level monsters around, which threaten the lives of the tribe members at all times, and they dare not let go and develop. Finally, the environment in Deep Forest Mountain is not good. There are no barriers, no dangerous areas, and it is not even suitable for setting up formations. Therefore, the enemy would approach easily and directly behead the family leader. After some discussion, the two finally found that there was only one way ahead of them, to continue changing the family location. Find an area that is safer and more suitable for family development. Zhou Daobai thought thoughtfully and said, Daki, I'm going to Balan Lake to ask Daocheng for any good advice. For the time being, you can stay here with your tribe and wait for news from me. Zhou Daoqi knew there was no better way, so he nodded helplessly. A strong foundation builder travels extremely fast, far beyond the ability of a Qi refining monk. The journey from Deep Forest Mountain to Balan Lake originally took more than 10 days, but Zhou Daobai only spent 5 days. Unfortunately, Zhou Daobai did not find Zhou Daocheng in the White Scale Valley. After all, at this moment, Zhou Daocheng had already gone to Wugu to guard the development of Wugyufeng City. What's even more troublesome is that Zhao Yunji and others don't know the location of Wugu at all. Strictly speaking, they had no idea what Zhou Daocheng was doing recently, and Zhou Daocheng rarely mentioned it to others. Zhao Yunji only knew that Zhou Daocheng should have gone further east to make some secret plans. Regarding this, Zhou Daobai also had a headache. His 6th brother has become more and more mysterious now. It is like a dragon that disappears without seeing its head. It is difficult to even meet him. In desperation, Zhou Daobai could only investigate by himself and find out what happened recently in the east. By asking some casual cultivators, he really learned some things. To the east, a strong man named Master Wugu gathered a group of powerful casual cultivators to carve out a pure land in the wilderness and build a brand new city called Wugyufeng City. It is said that the resources there are more abundant, so many monks who were originally near Baihifeng City have gone to Wugyufeng City to look for opportunities. Zhou Daobai frowned slightly, lowered his head and murmured to himself, Master Wu Ji Yu. Xinfeng City, I didn't expect such a thing to happen. It seems that Daocheng went to Xinfeng City to look for opportunities. I don't know if I can find him. Quote. Thinking of what happened to his family, Zhou Daobai only thought for a moment, and finally embarked on his journey. Under the guidance of the casual cultivators, we headed towards the foggy valley in the east. 7 days later, a mountain range completely shrouded in thick fog appeared in front of him. Although Wugyufeng City is not that big, the entire Wugu mountain range is quite large, and it is completely shrouded in fog, mysterious and vast. Zhou Daobai just glanced at it and felt a heart-stopping threat from the thick fog in front of him. What a terrifying formation! Zhou Daobai couldn't help but sigh. Even though he had broken through to the foundation building, he could still feel that if he fell into this endless fog, he would most likely die. What shocked him even more was that a newly established Xinfang city actually had such a rich heritage and was protected by a powerful second-level formation. There is even a high probability that it is not the second-level low grade, but the quality reaches the second-level mid-grade, or even the top grade. After sighing, Zhou Daobai followed the other casual cultivators, followed the passage of Wugyufeng City, and walked into the mountains shrouded in mist. The closer he got here, the more bustling he found. A large number of casual monks gathered nearby, creating a lively atmosphere. Many powerful teams of casual cultivators are hunting monsters and beasts in this area. There are competitions between them, and there are also conflicts and fights. There are also many small families and small forces that cooperate with each other, compete with each other, and compete with casual cultivators for living space. This is a new land, full of hope and vitality. Especially after entering Wugyufeng City, the number of people here was more than he imagined. Although it was a mini Fang city in name, the actual number of people was no less than that of a small Fang city. This also made Zhou Daobai curious about what kind of charm it was that allowed this city hidden in the wild mountains to attract so many monks. But regarding this issue, Zhou Daobai really misunderstood. In the ordinary city, most monks come and go, and there are not too many people who stay there for a long time. But the situation in Wugyufeng City is very special. Because in addition to the square market in the first valley, there are also caves and spiritual fields in the second valley. Therefore, there are many casual cultivator teams and families that have almost taken root in Wugyufeng City, so there is a lot of traffic coming and going. But this also made Wugyufeng City more lively and full of vitality. It only opened for more than 10 days and attracted a large number of monks. Even in the past few days, the popularity has far surpassed that of Baihifeng City, and its reputation is getting bigger and bigger. Zhou Daobai's eyes moved slightly, and he looked at the city shrouded in mist before him, with a large number of exquisite buildings and various shops standing there. The sounds of hawking and noise were endless, and he couldn't help but feel a trace of yearning in his heart. It would be a wonderful thing if the Zhou family could develop here. The location here is remote enough, almost an isolated cultivation circle, and the Zhou family can completely start over here. Moreover, it is safe enough here. On the one hand, the natural environment is safe, and the powerful formation is enough to block the invasion of monsters and enemy attacks. On the other hand, it is the safety of competition. He has discovered that most of the forces here are just chi refining forces, and there are no powerful foundation building forces. Moreover, many small families and forces, just like the Zhou family today, were forced to flee here and start over after suffering the disaster of annihilation. Therefore, the seemingly weak Zhou family is not weak here. On the contrary, under the leadership of Zhou Daobai, it is already considered a very powerful force. I don't know how Daocheng is doing. If we can take over the family, it will indeed be a good place for development. Zhou Daobai murmured to himself with emotion as he walked on the street. However, when he reached the end of Fangxi, he saw that in the deepest part, there was actually a passage shrouded in fog and guarded by powerful monks. Hey, why is there a passage here? Isn't there just one valley? Zhou Daobai was quite curious. After finding a casual cultivator and briefly asking, he understood the situation clearly, and then he was deeply shocked again. There really is a second valley. And it contains first-order high-grade spiritual energy. And you can buy and rent spiritual fields and caves to provide settlement for small families and small forces. If you are strong, you can also directly cooperate with the senior management of Foggy Valley. Every word struck Zhou Daobai's heart deeply. He seemed to have seen a paradise, a land that was completely suitable for the development of the Zhou family. At this moment, he seemed to have made a decision in his heart. No matter what, he had to move his family here. As for the agreement with Wugu, there was no need to sign a contract to sell himself, but it was still possible to rent for a few years. After settling down, he would first find a piece of land with spiritual veins near Wugu and then settle down. Thinking of this, Zhou Daobai also made up his mind and walked into the passage connecting the second mountain pass. However, the seemingly ordinary clouds and mist surged slightly at this moment, as if controlled by a mysterious big hand. Zhou Daobai had a slight sense and was vaguely aware of the subtle changes around him, but he didn't know why. It wasn't until he walked for a quarter of an hour and still didn't walk out of the clouds and mist that his expression changed drastically and he looked up at the sky in horror. Is this already trapped in the formation? Zhou Daobai looked around. Looking forward was a thick cloud and mist, and looking back was still hazy mist. The surroundings were silent, as if there were no living creatures. Realizing his situation, Zhou Daobai was a little flustered, but he did not lose his composure. Instead, he cupped his hands and said loudly, "May I ask if you are the owner of Wugu Market?" "I am Zhou Daobai. I have no ill intentions in coming here this time. Please make way for me, senior." As the voice fell, after a calm of more than 10 seconds, the surrounding clouds and mist suddenly began to disperse. At this time, Zhou Daobai was surprised to find that he had already left the original passage and walked into a complex terrain. The surrounding rocks were jagged and the valley was completely invisible. At this time, he suddenly saw a vague figure walking out of the distant clouds and mist. A purple robe was shrouded in clouds and mist, and the bronze mask was mysterious. The surrounding clouds and mist seemed to see the owner, like a dragon, surrounding this person. Zhou Daobai did not dare to be careless, and arched his hands vigilantly. "Are you the Lord of Fog Valley?" "I am Zhou Daobai, and I am polite." The purple-robed man walked slowly, but did not speak. Under the cover of the bronze mask, the expression on his face could not be seen. Suddenly, the scene was silent. Until the two were several meters apart, Zhou Daobai had already tightened his muscles and looked at the person in front of him with extreme vigilance. The purple-robed man stopped and slowly said, "Brother, long time no see." After the voice fell, there was silence. No sound was made, only Zhou Daobai's sluggish expression remained, and he suddenly looked up at the person in front of him, just staring at the same person under the bronze mask. The familiar eyes met at this moment. Zhou Daobai felt unbelievable, and he did not come back to his senses for a long time. Finally, he just asked tentatively, "Who are you?" Zhou Daocheng smiled faintly, reached out to take off the bronze mask on his face, and a familiar face appeared in front of Zhou Daobai. It was still the same sentence. "Big brother, long time no see." When he really saw the familiar face, Zhou Daobai also immediately let go of his guard and exhaled a long breath. Then, a slap hit Zhou Daocheng on the forehead. He cursed angrily, "You dog thing. Pretend to be a dog egg." Zhou Daocheng's mouth twitched. This was the first time he heard his big brother curse his mother. He immediately knew that something was wrong. He hurriedly wanted to hide, but the next moment, his forehead was burning and he grimaced in pain. Fortunately, Zhou Daobai didn't want to play with Zhou Daocheng. He just taught him a simple lesson and stopped his actions. Zhou Daocheng was also helpless. It was just a simple joke. He didn't expect that his big brother would take it seriously. He really couldn't afford it. "Big brother, how did you come here? And your breath. This is a breakthrough," Zhou Daocheng asked, his face full of surprise. In fact, when Zhou Daobai entered the formation, he had already sensed the breath of a strong foundation-building cultivator. When he found out that the person was his elder brother, he was even more surprised. After half a year, his elder brother, who was extremely talented, had actually broken through to the foundation-building stage. This also means that the Zhou family has now completely restored the foundation-building heritage and become a powerful foundation-building family. It also means that there is one more powerful foundation-building cultivator behind Zhou Daocheng. Zhou Daobai nodded slightly, acknowledging the fact that he had broken through. Then he looked at the young man in front of him again, with an even stronger look of surprise in his eyes. "Daocheng, are you the legendary young master Wugu?" Zhou Daocheng touched his nose and said, "If there is no accident, it should be me." "Did you build the Wugu market?" "I guess so." "Are you the owner here?" "I guess so." Zhou Daobai took a breath of cold air. He had only been in seclusion for a while, but he didn't expect that his sixth brother would do so many incredible things. All the rumors he had heard along the way were unexpectedly about his younger brother, which really made him a little unbelievable. "It's really hard to imagine, hard to imagine." Zhou Daocheng just smiled at Zhou Daobai's surprise and said, "Brother, no need to say more, let's go back to the valley and talk." "The second valley I was going to before." Zhou Daocheng showed a mysterious smile. "No, it's the third valley, the one that is not open to the public." With just a light flick of his hand, the clouds in front of him dissipated directly, and a road leading directly to the third valley appeared in front of him. Zhou Daobai was also quite surprised to see such a powerful method. After just a few minutes of walking, the two of them directly entered the third valley. Instantly, the concentration of spiritual energy reaching the second level came to Zhou Daobai, making him feel refreshed. "The concentration of spiritual energy here is so high," Zhou Daocheng said casually. "Of course, this is a second-level superior formation. If you need it, I will help you arrange a cave with a first-level superior spiritual energy concentration." Zhou Daobai nodded slightly and found that the environment in the valley was very beautiful. Surrounded by towering peaks, lush trees grew on the cliffs, many of which were precious spiritual trees and flowers, growing vigorously in the misty spiritual energy. The ground of the valley was also covered with green grass, looking full of vitality. Moreover, he actually saw a beautiful little snake here. After seeing him come in, it was hiding behind a stone vigilantly, spitting out its tongue and looking in his direction. Afterwards, at Zhou Daocheng's call, the little snake slowly swam out and wrapped around Zhou Daocheng's legs. Still looking at Zhou Daobai vigilantly. Is this the spirit beast you raised? Well, this fog valley was once occupied by 3 mirage pythons. I organized a group of casual cultivators to clean up this place and used it as the settlement of the market town. I also kept the descendants of the 3 mirage pythons as spirit beasts. If I guess correctly, this should be a second-level demon beast, right? Zhou Daobai asked. Yes, there is a certain probability of breaking through to the second level. Tisk, tisk, sixth brother, you hid it deep enough. Zhou Daocheng smiled. He actually had no intention of hiding these secrets. Including the matter of Wugyufeng City, he originally planned to inform the family head in the near future, and at the same time shift the Zhou family's development focus to the city. However, before he could return to his family, Zhou Daobai found him. By the way, brother, why do you come to see me when you have time? How is the family doing? Zhou Daocheng asked. But as soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Daobai's face turned dark to the naked eye. There is a hint of murderous intent and gloom. Seeing this situation, Zhou Daocheng seemed to have guessed something. He quickly put away his smile and asked in a low voice, is there an accident? Not bad. Zhou Daobai nodded slightly, his expression cold and deep. Go back to my cave first and let's have a good chat. Zhou Daocheng did not dare to be careless, restrained his joking, and hurriedly took his eldest brother Zhou Daobai back to the cave. Zhou Daobai did not hide anything, but told everything that happened in the family. Originally, Zhou Daobai did not want to hand over these responsibilities to Zhou Daocheng, but just wanted to ask him if there was an area suitable for the family's development. However, after seeing Zhou Daocheng's background, Zhou Daobai naturally knew in his heart that his sixth brother was no longer the child he once was, but the master of Wugu who truly stood firm and made a name for himself. That's why he was willing to share these heavy things with Zhou Daocheng. When he heard what happened in his family, Zhou Daocheng's expression instantly became solemn, with a hint of anger emerging. The Tianqi Mountain Zhou family, a large foundation-building family with hundreds of immortal cultivators, only had 13 members left after suffering 2 disasters in succession. Even if the tribesmen from Balin Lake are included, there are only about 20 tribesmen left. This is no longer just abjection, but close to genocide. And among the 20 or so people, some of them were like Zhou Chengyan, an old generation with the name Chong, watching them. There is also a large number of children of the Dao generation who are not yet underage. If it weren't for the support of Zhou Daobai, Zhou Daocheng, and Zhou Daoqi, the Zhou family, which has been passed down for hundreds of years, might really be lost in the long river of history. Zhou Daocheng's voice was gloomy. Brother, do you know the identity of the person coming? Zhou Daobai shook his head and said, I don't know. When they attacked Shenline Mountain, they did not carry any identifying items. But according to my estimation, they should be monks from a powerful force, possessing many elixirs and talismans, and even it's a second-level talisman. Zhou Daocheng frowned slightly and couldn't help but feel troubled. Zhou Daobai continued to add, at the same time, I am also wondering whether someone has leaked the location of Deep Forest Mountain. Logically speaking, the location of Shenline Mountain is concealed enough, and we are very careful not to let the Ma family and Chen family catch us. Why are we still found by the enemy? Regarding this doubt, Zhou Daocheng just thought about it for a while and finally understood the reason. So he shook his head and said, Brother, there is no need to doubt this matter. The hiding work we did is actually not as good as imagined. What's the meaning? Between Tianqi Mountain and Shenline Mountain, we did hide well enough without leaving any traces. But what about between Balin Lake and Shenline Mountain? This sentence completely awakened Zhou Daobai. After his eyes changed several times, he nodded slightly. It is indeed possible that we were careless after all. Zhou Daocheng lowered his eyes and did not dwell too much on how to expose Deep Forest Mountain. Instead, he asked, then what are you going to do next according to Big Brother's wishes? We can no longer stay in Deep Forest Mountain. The family needs a new location. I want to ask your opinion. Zhou Daocheng thought for a while, but did not respond immediately, but continued to ask, Brother, how many mortals are left in the Zhou family? Zhou Daobai said with a gloomy expression. There isn't much left. First, at the foot of Tianqi Mountain, half of them were massacred by the Chen and Ma families because they did not evacuate in time. Afterwards, during the migration process, a small number died. In the end, not many actually moved to the deep forest mountains. Finally, in the deep forest mountain, due to the huge changes in climate and environment, some mortals of the Zhou family could not adapt to the climate, and they also died one after another. At the same time, some died at the mouths of monsters. Total calculation now, there should be less than 20,000 Zhou family mortals in total. Although this was very bad news, Zhou Daocheng was not particularly sad. Because if the Zhou family members were to be relocated, the most troublesome problem would be mortals. There are many mortals in the Zhou family and their strength is declining, so it is very troublesome to transfer them, and their resettlement is also a big trouble. After Zhou Daocheng considered it for a moment, he said, "Brother, how do you think the mortals of the Zhou family should deal with it?" Zhou Daobai was slightly startled, and said matter-of-factly, "Of course he will move with us." Then if another group of people died during the transfer, and if another group of people died due to acclimatization after settling down, how many people will be left? Zhou Daobai was stunned and couldn't answer for a while. If we go through this again, the remaining mortals who are less than 20,000 may really die. Moreover, neither White Scale Lake nor Foggy Valley is actually suitable for relocating Zhou family mortals. The reason why Balin Lake was safe and sound was largely due to the protection of the Shanhai sect. Once the Zhou family mortals migrated here, everything would be exposed. The same is true for Wugu. It is very important to hide your identity. Once the Zhou family's enemies know it, they will definitely target Wugu. Now it is already very difficult to face Baihifang city alone. If several other foundation building forces are added, things will only be more troublesome. And thinking about this, Zhou Daocheng already has some understanding of the forces that attacked the Zhou family. The only family that can know the relationship between Balin Lake and the Zhou family is the Moyunshanqi family. Sixth brother, what are you going to do? Zhou Daocheng said. All the Zhou family's immortal cultivators will be transferred to the Mist Valley. We will start over here. With my protection, everything will be fine. And after you break through, our development will only be smoother. As for the mortals, let's stay in Shenline Mountain and destroy the spiritual veins directly, so that they can live a stable life there. Zhou Daobai's face changed slightly. He had never thought of this bold decision, even a rebellious decision. Is this really appropriate? If a hostile force finds Shenline Mountain again, they may directly destroy all the Zhou family's mortals. Then take a gamble. I bet the other party won't be so crazy and kill 20,000 mortals without any benefit. Zhou Daocheng's eyes were cold and he continued calmly. Moreover, we can leave a photographic stone in a secret place. If the other party really goes on a killing spree, we can also use this to find them, and even use this as our most powerful means of revenge. Quote. After saying this, Zhou Daobai took a deep breath and glanced at himself as his sixth brother. After a long silence, he finally let out a helpless breath and said, "Sixth brother, you are more cruel than me. This is our best option. Then, do as you say." The next period of time. Zhou Daocheng was still stationed in Wugu, while Zhou Daobai became busy. On the one hand, try to clean up the monsters near the deep forest mountain as much as possible to ensure the safety of the mortals of the Zhou family. On the other hand, the remaining 13 tribesmen began to be transferred. First, they were all sent to the underwater cave in Balin Lake, and then the head of the family, Zhou Chengyi, arranged which ones would go to Foggy Valley. Zhou Chengyi did not die in the sneak attack and was forcibly rescued in the end, but now his legs are disabled and he can only sit in a wheelchair. After learning about Zhou Daobai's breakthrough in foundation building and what Zhou Daocheng had done in the past year, the elderly head of the Zhou family burst into tears. To be reborn in the face of death and to bloom hope in the face of despair is the greatest comfort. The Yangzi generation, the Chengzi generation, and the Shuzi generation have all been destroyed by disasters, but the Dao generation has truly produced several great talents for the ZTE. The scepter of the family's destiny has been officially handed over at this moment, and the big ship of the Zhou family has begun to be controlled by the Dao family. Where the road will go from now on is still unclear. However, after learning about Zhou Daobai and Zhou Daocheng's plan, Zhou Chengyi just remained silent for a moment, and after distinguishing the pros and cons, he chose to fully support it. Regarding the arrangements of ordinary mortals, he understood Zhou Daocheng's thoughts after only listening to a few words, and marveled at the cruelty and decisiveness of his eldest grandson. But at this moment, the Zhou family really has no better way out. For the sake of a better future, even if we directly abandon these 20,000 Zhou family mortals, it would still be okay. What Zhou Chengyi has to do next is to leave a group of people in Balin Lake, and then select a group of people to go to Foggy Valley. The selection of personnel is actually very important. Again, eggs cannot be put in one basket. Otherwise, if the nest is overturned, how can there be any eggs? If the Zhou family had not transferred a group of clan members to Balin Lake before, perhaps the current situation would have been even worse. After careful consideration, Zhou Chengyi decided to send most of the tribesmen with strong strength and special skills to Wugu. In Balin Lake, only the children who have not yet grown up and a few old men who teach them are left. All the weapon refiners, as well as the tribesmen who have reached the late stage of qi refining, all go to Foggy Valley. A total of 9 people include Zhou Daobai, a strong foundation builder. The 6 weapon refining masters also include Zhou Daoqi, who has the highest level of weapon refining in the family today, and 2 clansmen who are in the late stage of qi refining. The strength is definitely not strong. If Zhou Daobai is not included, there will not even be a strong person at the 9th level of qi refining. Not to mention, compared with the foundation building forces, even the forces under Zhou Daocheng were dozens of times that of the Zhou family today. But this is now all the vitality of the Zhou family, all invested in Wugu. Zhou Chengyi also believed that under the protection of Zhou Daocheng and Zhou Daobai, the safety of these tribesmen would be guaranteed and their development prospects would be better. The next few days were spent escorting the tribe to Foggy Valley. Along the way, with the protection of Zhou Daobai, a strong foundation builder, everything was safe. After arriving in Wugyufeng City, Zhou Daocheng had already arranged a place for them. Let the Zhou family members establish cooperation with Wugu as a small down-and-out weapon refining family, similar to the previous, Little Dan Pavilion, and Wang family. At the same time, a large and well-located shop was also arranged for the Zhou family members to sell magical artifacts. With Zhou Daocheng's support, the entire magical artifact industry in Feng City will be handed over to the Zhou family, and the family will surely develop rapidly. At the same time, a part of the spiritual field and cave mansion were also allocated in the second valley. Generally speaking, in order to prevent attracting other people's attention, the discounts and benefits provided by Zhou Daocheng are similar to those of Shaodan Pavilion and Wang family, not too much, not too little. Moreover, the appearance of the Zhou family also made up for the lack of weapon refining power in Feng City, making the structure of the entire Wugu Feng City more complete. A market that can stably supply magic weapons, elixirs, talismans, formations, and spiritual beasts is extremely rare even within the entire Qingshan sect. Although the quality is relatively low, it is completely enough for the monks around Wugyufeng City. Both Wugyufeng City and the Zhou family, which has restarted development, are gradually getting on the right track, relying on the Wugu Mountains to recuperate and continue to grow and develop. But in terms of the overall environment, the crisis has not been resolved. As a large number of monks flowed into Wugyufeng City, the development of Baihifeng City was greatly suppressed, and the income of the 5 major forces was greatly reduced. Faced with such competition, how could they stand by and let the benefits flow to Wugyufeng City? They didn't take action at the moment, they were just waiting for the opportunity. It was like the calm before the storm. As long as the opportunity came, there would be a violent storm in an instant. Zhou Daocheng knew it in his heart and was always prepared. After the last confrontation, Zhou Daocheng believed that the 5 forces had already known the power of the formation and could not invade Wugu Market again. If they wanted to target Wugu Market, they could only think of other ways. There were not many ways left for Baihei Market. Or, Baihei Market could use more favorable prices and more attractive natural treasures to attract cultivators back to Baihei Market. But this method was too difficult and almost impossible to succeed, because Wugu Market had the 2 trump cards of formation and spiritual beast, which Baihei Market could not satisfy. What's more, the location of Wugu Market was naturally superior to Baihei Market close to the East Great Wilderness Vein, so it had more abundant monster beast resources and natural treasures. Moreover, the area around Wugu had never been developed, and there might be undiscovered spiritual veins hidden, which would naturally attract more cultivators. So, if Baihei Market wanted to compete with Wugu, there was only one way left: suppression. If it is not possible to attract the monks back, then use your powerful strength to destroy the top leaders of Wugu Market, or replace them. An open and covert struggle between the top leaders of the 2 markets has been gradually unfolding. Only 3 months later, bad news reached Zhou Daocheng's ears. First, a strong man of the 9th level of qi refining appeared in the market and caused trouble. With his powerful strength, he injured many of the garrison personnel in the market. Zhou Daocheng couldn't help frowning at this news. Now, the garrison personnel in Wugu market are all strong men of the 9th level of weapon refining. It is really embarrassing that they were crushed and injured by the other party at the same level. However, it is understandable that apart from the rich experience in hunting monsters, the abilities of casual cultivators in other aspects are not as good as those of powerful cultivators. The quality of cultivation techniques, the strength of condensed magic power, the spells learned, the magic tools, talismans and pills owned all have a great impact on strength. Therefore, at the same level, casual cultivators are almost at a disadvantage. Zhou Daocheng also had to think about how to solve this problem. Letting others injure his men in his own territory is simply a slap in the face of Wugu market, and it is the kind that Wugu cannot fight back. If many people join forces to drive out a strong man of the same level, it is also a shameful thing. Moreover, the provocateur himself also wants to show his own strength, so as to suppress the momentum of Wugyufang City. In the face of this situation, there is no other way except to face it head-on and drive this person out with strong strength. Zhou Daocheng thought silently that if he wanted to improve the strength of the cultivators at the same level, most of them could only use external objects, that is, magic tools, talismans, elixirs, formations, etc. After some consideration, Zhou Daocheng set his sights on magic tools. Most of the magic tools of casual cultivators are of inferior quality. If they can be replaced with a set of powerful magic tools, the improvement in strength will be very huge. Moreover, Zhou Daocheng just happened to have a batch of monster materials suitable for refining magic tools: Purple Demon, Wolf Spider and Mirage Cloud Python. These two first-level top-grade monsters have extremely high-quality materials, especially scales and spider silk, which are the top existence among first-level materials. Scales can be used to make powerful defensive magic tools, especially extremely precious armor, which is extremely valuable. Spider silk can be made into silk net magic tools, which are mainly used for control and have very good effects. So, Zhou Daocheng brought these materials to the Zhou family's shop, Lingqi Pavilion. As the only shop of the Zhou family in Wugu market, the geographical location is very advantageous. It is located outside the auction venue and belongs to the core of the entire market. Almost all casual cultivators come to buy magic tools, or recast and repair them. When Zhou Daocheng arrived, the shop was very busy. When the Zhou family members saw him, they just nodded politely, and then left him aside, and had no time to pay attention to him at all. In response, Zhou Daocheng could only touch his nose awkwardly. It was not until late at night that the flow of people in the shop gradually decreased. Zhou Daocheng found Zhou Daoqi, who was repairing magic tools on the second floor. "Sixth brother, I see you've come early in the morning. Do you have anything to ask me?" Zhou Daoqi grinned and touched his belly habitually. His round figure showed his stability. Zhou Daocheng also got straight to the point, roughly explained the recent situation, and put forward his own needs. "Fourth brother, I just want to ask you if you can create a set of powerful magic tools for the monks stationed in the Fog Valley, preferably the kind that can directly enhance their strength." Zhou Daoqi's eyes showed a thoughtful look, and then asked, "Sixth brother, do you have a rough idea?" Zhou Daocheng nodded and took out a large amount of monster materials from the storage bag, all of which were obtained from the Purple Demon, Wolf Spider and the Mirage Cloud Python. Zhou Daoqi just took a look, his eyes immediately lit up, and he couldn't help but touch it with an amazed expression. "Is this a top-grade monster material? Wow, this quality is good enough." Zhou Daoqi couldn't help but sigh while stroking it. "Since the Zhou family fell into decline, we rarely see high-quality materials." Zhou Daocheng also smiled and said, "Fourth brother, there will be some in the future." Zhou Daoqi nodded deeply and asked, "Yes. Then what kind of magic weapon do you plan to refine, sixth brother? Do you have any ideas?" Zhou Daocheng thought for a while and said, "It is best to have a magic weapon that can directly enhance strength and have strong combat capabilities." Zhou Daoqi touched his chin, took another look at the monster material before his death, and said tentatively, "If you want to directly enhance your strength, I think armor magic weapons are the most suitable. And there are a lot of monster scales here, and the materials are also very sufficient. What do you think? After all, I am an outsider in magic weapons, so let the fourth brother decide." "Okay, then I will plan it carefully." Zhou Daoqi also took over this work generously and began to design this set of magic weapons. After a night of discussion and conversation, the two of them finally came up with a prototype of a set of magic tools, which mainly included two magic tools. The first is the armor-type magic tool for defense, which is made of the scales of the mirage python and the shell of the purple demon wolf spider. The second is the net-type magic tool for trapping the enemy, which is made of spider silk. If a cultivator of the 9th level of Chi refining can be equipped with these two first-level top-grade magic tools at the same time, his strength will definitely be greatly improved. Especially in terms of defense, it has almost doubled, which is enough to face most situations. After making such arrangements, Zhou Daocheng left all the monster materials in the Zhou family's spiritual weapon pavilion and handed them over to Zhou Daoqi for processing. It takes a lot of time to refine magic tools, not to mention that it is the most complicated armor-type magic tool, which consumes a lot of time and energy. And Zhou Daocheng also has other things to worry about. In addition to the provocations within Wugu market, many things also happened outside of Wugu. Just a few days ago, when Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan went out to hunt monsters, they encountered the hunting team of Jin sect and a conflict broke out between the two sides. Fortunately, Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan both had first-grade superior formations, and their strength was very strong. They almost overwhelmed the other side, so they were safe in the end. But other teams of independent cultivators were not so lucky. If they encountered a hunting team of a powerful force, they would have almost no ability to resist. In just over a month, several forces in Wugu market were targeted by Baihei market. Among them were the team of Shaodan Pavilion, the team of Fulu Wang family, and some other independent cultivator teams. They were ambushed by the Baihei market hunting team lurking around, and suffered heavy losses. Zhou Daocheng actually did not have a good solution to this problem. After all, in the wild, it is normal to encounter other hunting teams, and conflicts between them are also normal. There is really nothing to say if you are not as skilled as others. There is only one solution, that is to continue to improve your strength. But it is undeniable that the contradictions between Wugyufang City and Baihifang City are gradually accumulating, and will only become more and more serious as time goes by. Baihifang City, a spacious conference hall hidden underground. Several monks gathered here. They were the 5 major forces that controlled Baihifang City. A gloomy, rickety old man was the first to speak. Everyone, Wugyufang City has been successfully established, and the momentum is getting stronger and stronger. Do you have any plans? HMPH, what are your plans? They must be severely suppressed. The Fire Dragon sect monk said decisively. The elder of the Jin sect also said coldly, I have sent 5 hunting teams to stay around Wugyufang City every day. As long as there are forces stationed in Wugyufang City, I will kill them all so that they dare not go out. Yes, as long as the monks stationed in Wugyufang City are killed, no one will dare to go there again. The old man of the Disha sect said, Everyone, we are mainly targeting the forces under the Lord of Wugu, especially the strong casual cultivators he has conquered. As long as they are dealt with, the arrogance of Wugyufang City will be greatly suppressed. Haha, this is not a big problem. After all, Wugyufang City's foundation is still too low to compete with us. Then continue to take action and increase the intensity against Wugyufang City. Don't let them catch their breath. Okay, our Zion Pavilion will continue to send more manpower. The same goes for my Fire Dragon sect. In the following months, the situation continued to deteriorate. The monks in Wugyufang City can clearly feel that the killings around Wugyufang City have increased significantly recently. Many teams were attacked by surprise, and many people died. At the same time, in the past few months, monks have repeatedly caused trouble in Wugyufang City. All kinds of hidden uneasiness are lurking in the dark, but they are vaguely coming to the surface. Zhou Daocheng was on the streets of Foggy Valley, and the voices of other monks could be heard in his ears. Have you heard? Huang Dao, an 8th level Qi refining casual cultivator, was killed by the group when he went out to hunt monsters yesterday. Not a single one of the 7 people in his group was left alive. It's not the first time this has happened. It must be those beasts from Baihifang City again. Maid, Baihifang City is just suppressing Wugyufang City, why don't you let us casual cultivators go? Don't you understand yet? Baihifang City has made it clear that it wants to block Wugu Valley so that we don't dare to come over and we all return to Baihifang City. Going back to Baihifang City. I'd rather be frightened here than go back and drink a bottle of first-class low-grade elixir worth 50 spirit stones. The environment in Wugu is indeed good, but it's a pity that the foundation of Wugyufang City is still too poor. I don't know if it can withstand the siege of Baihifang City. It's hard for me. Haven't you seen that in the past few months, you haven't even dared to let out a fart? It is said that the 9th level chi refining experts under them have also suffered heavy losses during this period. Indeed, there were elders from the Jin sect who caused trouble in Wugyufang City before. The monks from Wugu couldn't control the situation at all, and they even directly injured 2 people. Well, if this continues, I think I will have to leave Wugyufang City sooner or later. The top management of Fang City is too weak, so they really don't feel comfortable staying here. What if some monsters come up and are completely wiped out? Quote. Listening to the rumors, Zhou Daocheng also clearly felt that the flow of people in Wugyufang City had decreased a lot. Obviously, the encirclement and massacre by the 5 major forces in Baihifang City scared away many monks and made them afraid to come. If for a long time Wugyufang City is never able to show strong strength and is forced to be suppressed, it will inevitably gradually decline. It seems that we need to take action as soon as possible. We cannot let the situation develop like this. Zhou Daocheng also showed some concern. The other party's plan was very simple, but very effective. It is to use the monks in the chi refining stage with higher overall strength to continuously suppress the strong men of the same level in Wugyufang City. This is a competition of foundation, but Wugyufangshi lacks the foundation the most, making it difficult to accept the opponent's provocation. Regarding this situation, although Zhou Daocheng was anxious, he could only wait silently. Because what Wugyufang City needs most now is time. If you give them a long enough time, they can accumulate a strong enough foundation. Powerful magical weapons, powerful formations, and powerful spiritual beasts will greatly enhance the monk's strength. However, the accumulation of these resources takes time. The spirit snake sect is constantly cultivating spirit-devouring ants, expanding the population and improving the strength of the ant colony. But so far, the only ones that can take action are the first-level low-grade, spirit-swallowing ants. In addition to practicing, Zhou Daocheng also spends a lot of time refining formations. However, the cost of the formation disc is too high, the refining time is too long, and there is only one formation master, Zhou Daocheng, so it is difficult to popularize it. The most reliable one is actually the Zhou family's magical weapon. In the past few months, Zhou Daochi has devoted himself wholeheartedly to the refining of magical weapons. In the past few days, the communication stone has been used to contact Zhou Daocheng and inform him that the first batch of magical weapons had been successfully refined. Zhou Daocheng also immediately put down his work and hurried over to check the situation. Arriving at the 2nd floor of the spiritual weapon pavilion, Zhou Daocheng's eyes suddenly lit up, and he saw several sets of armor with silver armor and white patterns hanging on the shelves. The whole body is an elegant silvery white, with faint cloud patterns flowing around it, giving it a unique sense of beauty. It's not a half-body armor, but a full-body soft-scale armor with helmet, chest protector, arm guards, and leg armor. The value of armor is higher than that of ordinary defensive magic tools, not to mention a full set of armor covering the whole body. Almost every detail of the body is made of the scales of the first-level superior monster Mirage Cloud Python, and the strength is terrifying. Zhou Daocheng reached out and gently touched it, and could feel the heavy breath. The scales of the Mirage Cloud Python are already very strong, and after being refined by the weapon refiner, the toughness and defense are further enhanced. Conservatively estimated, the defense ability of this set of armor is more than 30% stronger than that of the Mirage Cloud Python in its lifetime. Zhou Daochi walked over proudly with a bulging belly and said, "6th brother, how about the Luyun silver scale armor, refined by the 4th brother?" Each scale has been refined separately. Even among the first-level peak magic, it can be regarded as the best. Quote. There is no need for Zhou Daochi to brag. Zhou Daocheng can feel that the quality of this set of magic tools in front of him must be top-notch among first-level magic tools. The quality is indeed excellent. 4th brother, your chi refining skills are really amazing. Hee, thank you for the compliment. Let's take a look at other magic tools. Zhou Daochi grinned. Luyun silver scale armor is not much, only 6 pieces, and it is obviously very difficult to make. In addition, Zhou Daochi also refined several other first-level top-grade magic tools. Although they are not as good as Luyun silver scale armor, they are definitely not weak. There are also 2 sets of purple demon spider webs, which are made from the silk of the purple demon wolf spider. Their quality is also at the top of the first level and are mainly used to trap enemies. The spider web is highly toxic and sticky. Once it binds the monk's body, it is almost impossible to break free. The spider web will gradually be paralyzed by the annotated poison, and all his magic power will be dispersed. In addition, Zhou Daoqi also used the bones of the mirage cloud python and the spider legs of the purple demon wolf spider to refine 6 offensive weapons. Snake Bone Giant Scythe is a powerful magical weapon made from snake bones as the main body and spider legs as the scythe blade. But compared to Purple Demon Spider Web and Flowing Cloud Silver Scale Armor, Snake Bone Giant Scythe seems much mediocre and has no particularly conspicuous effect. However, the quality still reaches the first level, making it a rare and powerful magic weapon. Looking at the 3 magical weapons in front of him, Zhou Daocheng's eyes showed joy. Even he himself couldn't help but feel longing after seeing these magic weapons. In particular, the Floating Cloud Silver Scale Armor is of higher quality than the Earth Dragon Armor that Zhou Chengyan refined for himself. What's more, this is a complete set of armor that covers the whole body. The defensive effect is extremely excellent, and it is also more beautiful. Luyun Silver Armor is also very suitable for the name of Wugyufeng City. It can be said that this is the armor that is exclusive to Wugyufeng City, with great characteristics and style. Zhou Daocheng estimated that if a monk at the early stage of the 9th level of qi refining was equipped with these 3 magic weapons at the same time, his strength would be approximately doubled. Such strength is almost enough to rival those at the peak of the 9th level of qi refining. Even just wearing a set of Flowing Cloud Silver Scale Armor is enough to walk sideways in the 9th level of qi training, and is stronger than the elders of most forces. Zhou Daocheng's face was filled with joy and he said gratefully, "Thank you, 4th brother. With these magical weapons, Wugu's strength will definitely be greatly improved, enough to deal with Baihifang City's attacks." Zhou Daoqi showed an honest smile, waved his hand and said, "6th brother, you are too polite. This is all a trivial matter. But, 4th brother, if you have something to say, you might as well say it directly." Zhou Daoqi hesitated for a moment, and then asked, "6th brother, don't you plan to leave such a powerful magic weapon to the family? This way the clan members can be safer when going out." Zhou Daocheng was stunned. After thinking for a while, he shook his head and said, "There are not many Zhou family members left. There is no need to participate in the battle anymore. We should stay in Wugyufeng City as much as possible." Then he added, "As long as the tribe does not leave Wugu, with the protection of me and my eldest brother, there is almost no danger. As for the dangerous things outside, let the casual cultivators do it." Hearing this, Zhou Daoqi also showed a look of understanding and nodded, "Okay, it's my 4th brother who is worrying too much." Zhou Daocheng smiled and said, "4th brother, Wugu Valley is the territory of our Zhou family. You can just stay at the back. If you need monster materials to refine magic weapons, just tell me, the best part of it is definitely left to the family. However, the family probably doesn't need magic weapons like Flowing Cloud Silver Scale Armor. If there is a chance, 4th brother, you'd better refine some magic weapons like Blue Moon Bracelet and Soul Calming Bell, can also be used as a trump card." Quote. Hearing this, Zhou Daoqi couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. "6th brother, aren't you a little too damn greedy? The Blue Moon Bracelet and Soul Calming Bell are 2nd level magic weapons, and they are not on the same level as 1st level magic weapons, okay?" Quote. Zhou Daocheng asked doubtfully, "Is it difficult? The protective shield formed by the Blue Moon Bracelet can block the attacks of the foundation building monks. Then 4th brother, you can refine a 1st level high grade one that can block the attacks of the later stage of qi refining." Zhou Daoqi immediately rolled his eyes and said helplessly, "You really think highly of your 4th brother. This is not a quality issue at all, but that only 2nd level magic weapons can have these magical effects." Well, later, after Zhou Daoqi gave a rough explanation, Zhou Daocheng understood the specific situation. A 1st level magic weapon is just the foundation of weapon refining, and it only has a little more aura than a mortal weapon. At most, it has stronger attack and thicker defense. However, if you want to have special abilities similar to spells, you must reach the 2nd level. For example, the shield of the Blue Moon Bracelet, the spiritual attack of the Suppressing Bell, and the ability of the White Bone Flag to absorb the spirit of monsters all require at least a 2nd level magic weapon to achieve. After understanding it, Zhou Daocheng also scratched his head in embarrassment. It seemed that he still suffered the disadvantage of being uneducated. Finally, under Zhou Daoqi's resentful and helpless eyes, Zhou Daocheng took away all the magic weapons and left the spiritual artifact pavilion in a hurry. With a powerful magic weapon, you will have the confidence to fight against Baihifang City. Zhou Daocheng went directly to the second valley and found Meng Yushan, who was practicing. Issue an order to summon all the 9th level qi refining experts who have submitted to Wugyufang City. Although Meng Yushan was a little confused about this, he still followed the instructions truthfully. Now in the Foggy Valley, there are more than a dozen strong men at the 9th level of qi refining. Among them, Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan are the people Zhou Daocheng trusts the most. In addition, there are Wei Hanshan, Xie Zhouhei, Lu Chengzhou, Yuan Zhang, and female monk Tang Rong. These 5 people are the original members of Wugu, and they are all worthy of trust. In addition, in the later period, the spiritual fields and caves in the second valley were used to also absorb 8 9th level qi refining experts. They all signed lifetime contracts and were completely bound to Wu Ji Yu. Among them, 6 are independent cultivators, and the other 2 are the leaders of Shaodan Pavilion and Wang family, respectively. The cultivators of Shaodan Pavilion and Wang family are generally not responsible for the task of guarding the Fog Valley. They are mainly responsible for market management and ensuring the supply of elixirs and talismans. The remaining 13 people are mainly responsible for the security of the Fog Valley on weekdays to ensure that no outsiders come to make trouble. They are considered the guards of the Fog Valley. Or strictly speaking, they are also the direct forces under Zhou Daocheng. After thinking about it, Zhou Daocheng asked Meng Yushan to call all 13 people over. After waiting for a few minutes, 12 people stood in front of him. Some of their faces were familiar, while some were completely unfamiliar. However, after Zhou Daocheng looked around, he couldn't help but frown and asked, "Why is there one person missing?" Wei Hanshan, the old man, took the initiative to explain. "Senior, Xie Zhouhei, the Taoist friend, is in retreat, so he can't come for the time being." Retreat? Zhou Daocheng asked in surprise. He knew very well that Xie Zhouhei was a peak 9th level qi refining expert. If he was in seclusion, it must not be an ordinary seclusion. Old Wei, is he trying to break through the foundation? Zhou Daocheng asked with a frown. Wei Hanshan nodded and said, "Yes, fellow Taoist Xie bought a small foundation establishment pill at the auction. After being fully prepared, he has now officially achieved breakthrough in retreat." Quote. Only then did Zhou Daocheng remember that one of the 3 spirit condensing pills that had been sold at the auction was taken away by Xie Zhouhei. However, Zhou Daocheng was not very excited about the news, but frowned tightly. He asked seriously, "Old Wei, why didn't you discuss such a big matter with me in advance?" Wei Hanshan was stunned for a moment, but replied, "After all, it was Taoist Xie who took the elixir on his own. He wants to retreat and break through, and we have no right to interfere." "Then you know, what is the fate of the other 2 monks who photographed the Ningling pill?" Zhou Daocheng said seriously. Elder Wei looked stunned, and said with a hint of loneliness, "The breakthrough failed, and the body exploded and died." "Then you will let Xie Zhouhei break through?" Mr. Wei sighed and said, "The road to cultivating immortality is as difficult as climbing to the sky. For us, building a foundation is a threshold that is difficult to overcome in a lifetime. Even if there is a high probability of failure, there is still a need to try. I hope seniors can understand." When Zhou Daocheng heard this, he knew that Mr. Wei had misunderstood what he meant. Perhaps in Wei Lao's view, the reason why Zhou Daocheng was angry was because Xie Zhouhei did not report the advance and made the breakthrough without permission, which undermined Zhou Daocheng's majesty. But this is not the case. Zhou Daocheng took a deep breath and said, "What is the probability of success for his own breakthrough? Did you know that breaking through the foundation is to condense the spiritual energy of the whole body into liquid and build the foundation of the immortal path? The process requires an extremely large amount of spiritual energy. If I help him regulate his body, clear the blockages in his body, and then supply a large amount of spiritual energy when he breaks through, do you know how much the success rate will increase?" Zhou Daocheng gritted his teeth and every word struck Wei Hanshan's heart like a heavy hammer. The old man's eyes were so fierce that he didn't come back to his senses for a long time. This is the biggest difference between casual cultivators and family cultivators. As casual cultivators, they are extremely sensitive in character. They solve everything by themselves and rarely borrow the help of others, including breakthroughs. If a member of the family is about to make a breakthrough, the first thing to do is to report it to the family. Because every tribesman represents not only himself, but also the wealth of the family. This is the emotion and bond passed down by blood. When the family elders are sure that he can break through, they will specially prepare elixirs, talismans, an environment suitable for cultivation, and formations if conditions permit. Later, elders will be specially arranged to teach and protect the Dharma. The whole process is still quite cumbersome and complicated. However, it also greatly increases the probability of breakthrough and avoids many dangers to a great extent. But people like Xie Zhouhei started to retreat regardless of the situation, and the hurdle they faced was to break through the foundation building stage. In Zhou Daocheng's view, it was no different than sending someone to death. After Wei Hanshan was stunned for a few seconds, he hurriedly bowed respectfully and said hurriedly, "I misunderstood the senior. Fellow Taoist Xie has just been in seclusion for a few days, and he probably hasn't started to break through yet. I will call him back immediately." After saying that, he hurried to Xie Zhouhei's cave. Zhou Daocheng also shook his head helplessly. It would still take some time to completely change the minds of these casual cultivators. Tens of minutes later, Wei Hanshan walked out of a cave with a depressed Xie Zhouhei. It is very dangerous to be suddenly interrupted in retreat, but compared with the risks that may be encountered during the injection process, this is nothing. Xie Zhouhei's spiritual energy was severely damaged, but fortunately his foundation was not damaged. He only needed a period of recovery before he could get back on his feet. Senior, Xie was anxious, and he was too eager to break through the foundation building, so he went into retreat in a hurry. Zhou Daocheng waved his hand and said, "When I arrange things, I will personally guide you to make a breakthrough. Foundation building is a big deal, so don't rush it." "Yes, Senior," Xie Zhouhei responded softly. There was doubt in his heart, but there was also a trace of warmth flowing through him. Zhou Daocheng did not say much, but looked at the 13 ninth level qi refining cultivators present and said, "Everyone, Baihifeng City has been chasing us fiercely during this period. How do you feel?" The scene was quiet for 2 seconds. Yuan Zhang took the lead and cursed loudly. "Mada, those stupid beasts have been ambushing around Wugu all day long. What's even more damn hateful is that I can't beat them, so I'm a fool." Zhou Daocheng's face darkened. "Can you be more civilized like me when riding a horse, you idiot?" Yuan Zhang. Other people. Mr. Wei also heard a lot of dark things. How could this sound like a conversation between high-level officials in the city? What a vulgar market person. Ahem, Senior, you'd better tell the story directly. We are indeed under siege from Baihifeng City these days. If this continues, I'm afraid it's not an option. Yes, although we are at the same level, our strength is still somewhat inferior to our opponents after all. And their team is well equipped and cooperates well. It is really difficult for us to fight head-on. Although most casual cultivators have a proud personality and have indeed been angered in recent days, they have to admit that the forces in Baihifeng City are obviously stronger than them. Zhou Daocheng nodded, signaled everyone to be quiet, and said, "So this time, I will make new arrangements for you to improve your strength." Hearing this, everyone's eyes showed curiosity. Zhou Daocheng did not explain, but directly took out the magical weapons he had just obtained from the storage bag: flowing cloud silver scale armor, purple demon spider web, and snake bone giant scythe. When these 3 magic weapons appeared in front of everyone at the same time, they immediately attracted everyone's attention and looked over. Just from the breath coming out of the magic weapon, do they know how high the quality of the magic weapon is? There were 13 people present, all of whom were at the 9th level of qi refining, and most of them had their own first-level high-grade magic weapon. However, when they saw the magic weapon that Zhou Daocheng took out, they were extremely surprised to find that their own magic weapon seemed to be of extremely inferior quality and was not on the same level at all. Especially that set of full-body armor, it was completely beyond their understanding of magical weapons. Their first-order high-grade magic weapon is just the poorest quality, naturally inferior to the floating cloud silver scale armor that Dodge spent all his efforts refining last week. "Senior, you." Zhou Daocheng looked at everyone calmly and said seriously, "From now on, everyone's daily actions need to be regulated. Whether you are stationed in the city or going out to hunt monsters, there will be strict rules and regulations. At the same time, I will also help you increase your strength. Whether it is magical weapons, talismans, elixirs, or even formations, I will prepare them for you. At least you will have a strength that is not weaker than that of Baihifeng City." Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. The constraints of rules and regulations do make them feel uncomfortable, but the improvement of strength makes them yearn for it. Yuan Zhang couldn't wait to say, "Senior, if you can give me these magic weapons, you can arrange them as soon as possible." Zhou Daocheng smiled and said, "I will have 2 arrangements in total. The first is personnel arrangement. The personnel stationed in the market and the personnel going out to hunt monsters will be distinguished in the future. Meng Yushan, Yuan Zhang, Lu Chengzhou, you plus 3 other 9th level Qi refining cultivators will be responsible for going out to hunt monsters. In the future, every time you go out to hunt monsters, 2 9th level Qi refining strongmen will go out together, each with a set of Luyun silver scale armor and snakebone giant scythe. If you need purple demon spider web, you can apply for it separately. At the same time, the configuration of your hunting team will be optimized by Wei Lao later, and there will be special training in normal times. And your future tasks are mainly responsible for hunting first-level top-grade monsters, obtaining various precious sales materials, and cleaning up the surrounding Baihei market cultivators. Quote. After the words fell, the several Qi refining level 9 cultivators who were named looked at each other in bewilderment. Although they would usually lead hunting teams out to hunt monsters, they had always been quite casual. It seemed that from now on, they would gradually become more standardized. The 6 selected cultivators were all relatively strong and had good individual combat capabilities. Several people responded one after another, and under Zhou Daocheng's arrangement, they stood behind Meng Yushan. Zhou Daocheng continued. Lin Yuan, Xie Zhouhei, Tang Rong, and the other 3 Qi refining level 9 cultivators, the 6 of you will serve as the Fog Valley guards, and will be mainly responsible for the safety of the Fog Valley. Quote. If you patrol in the market in the future, go and get a set of Luyun silver scale armor, snakebone giant scythe, and purple demon spider web. Anyone who dares to make trouble in the market will be arrested without mercy. Quote. As for Elder Wei Hanshan, you are responsible for managing the logistics of the 2 teams and keeping these magic weapons. There are a total of 6 sets of Luyun silver scale armor, 2 sets of purple demon spider web, and 6 snakebone scythes. Whichever team needs them, please report to Elder Wei and apply for them. Quote. After Zhou Daocheng made simple arrangements, the system of the entire Wugu market was gradually improved. As for more detailed arrangements, Zhou Daocheng did not need to take care of them, and they could be left to them. Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan, as the leaders of 2 important teams, would be directly responsible to Zhou Daocheng, and they could ensure that everything was under control. As for the magic weapon, it would not belong to individuals, but whoever needed it could apply to Wei Lao. After handing the magic weapon to Wei Hanshan, Zhou Daocheng turned and left, and took Xie Zhouhei with him. As a peak powerhouse of the 9th level of Qi, Xie Zhouhei is also a very important cultivator in the market today, and like Wei Hanshan, he is an experienced casual cultivator. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng still cares about his life and death very much. Keeping this person can take on some major things. Taking him to a cave, Zhou Daocheng turned his head and looked at him, and asked, Xie Zhouhei, how confident are you that you can break through successfully? Xie Zhouhei lowered his eyes slightly and said, less than 20%. Quote. Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly. This success rate is actually not low. In theory, if there is no external assistance, only one of the 25 peak cultivators of the 9th level of Qi refining can break through. Especially for cultivators from small families and independent cultivators, their talents are not high, their foundations are not solid enough, and they all have flaws. They have no preventive measures for breakthrough vision. Therefore, the probability of breakthrough is extremely low. This is why Zhou Daocheng had to interrupt Xie Zhouhei's retreat. Zhou Daocheng said, more than 10% probability is not low, but with my help, it should be higher. Xie Zhouhei was quite surprised, looked at Zhou Daocheng with some curiosity, and asked, Senior, do you have any special means to help me break through? Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly and said, on the one hand, you have been fighting with monsters for many years, and your meridians have been injured a lot, and the flow of spiritual energy is blocked, which will greatly affect your breakthrough. Quote. Xie Zhouhei's eyes fixed, but he didn't say anything, just nodded solemnly. On the other hand, the process of building the foundation requires a lot of spiritual energy, and it is best to be in an environment with rich spiritual energy. I can also satisfy you as much as possible. Quote. After listening, Xie Zhouhei only thought about it for a while and understood the benefits. Then he immediately bowed gratefully and said respectfully, it is Xie who is anxious. I hope the senior can help me. I will be grateful. Zhou Daocheng waved his hand, took out a huge piece of wood from the storage bag, and then threw a bag of medicine to Xie Zhouhei, and ordered, boil water and prepare for a bath. Bath? Xie Zhouhei asked in confusion. Zhou Daocheng explained simply. This is a medicinal bath bag, which can help you eliminate the turbid air in the meridians in your body and repair some hidden injuries. Quote. Is it really so magical? Quote. Try it and you will know. Quote. Zhou Daocheng just smiled. This was the Huo Zuian medicine package, but strictly speaking, it should be 1/5 package. The original amount was too large, and it was too wasteful to give it to one cultivator, so Zhou Daocheng distributed it later. This was just enough for one person. Although Xie Zhouhei had some doubts in his heart, he still began to boil water doubtfully. After a cup of tea, when he was immersed in the light red liquid, feeling the burning medicinal power boiling and refining on his skin, the doubts in his heart completely disappeared. He deeply felt that the medicinal power, like a flame, was illuminating his dark body, burning away all the filth and turbid air in the dark gray. Many blocked meridians were unblocked at this moment, and the rich spiritual energy was like a rushing river, never so comfortable. Wisps of black turbid air kept floating above the body, accompanied by a strong sour smell. Xie Zhouhei felt that his old and broken body seemed to be reborn at this moment and restored to the vitality of his youth. He knew that after this medicinal bath, his body function was at least 5 years younger, and the possibility of such a breakthrough was greatly increased. At the same time, what kind of medicinal bath formula could have such a terrible effect, which made him sigh at the means of his predecessors? As the bath was coming to an end, Zhou Daocheng looked at Xie Zhouhei with satisfaction and asked, "How does it feel?" "Great. I've never felt so good before." Xie Zhouhei couldn't help but sigh. "Then continue to enjoy it. I'll prepare a place for you to break through," Zhou Daocheng said as he stood up and walked out. Then, as if he remembered something, he suddenly turned around and asked, "By the way, is your attribute ice attribute?" Xie Zhouhei was stunned for a moment and smiled bitterly. "No, I am a cultivator with 3 spiritual roots, mainly water spiritual roots, and I also practice water attribute exercises. Last time I just used an ice spell." Zhou Daocheng showed an understanding expression. He was still wondering, when did a cultivator with multiple spiritual roots actually have different spiritual roots? It turned out to be due to the spell. After knowing the attributes of the spiritual roots, Zhou Daocheng can also create a suitable environment for Xie Zhouhei to break through according to his attributes. Just like the first grade superior formation, thick earth spirit formation, that he used, it can continuously produce earth attribute spiritual energy. As for the water attribute formation, Zhou Daocheng chose the first grade superior, return flow formation, after repeated selection. After fusing with the gathering spirit formation, you can get the return flow spirit formation, which allows the formation to continuously fill with water attribute spiritual energy. The process of arranging the formation took about a week. With the improvement of strength and the improvement of immortal cultivation skills, the speed of arranging the first grade superior formation is also accelerating. During these 7 days, Xie Zhouhei has been constantly recuperating his body. The damage he suffered from forcibly coming out of seclusion has now been completely recovered. At this moment, both his magic power and his own spirit have been restored to the extreme. And this time is also the best time to break through. In Xie Zhouhei's cave, the returning spiritual array has been arranged, and water-attributed spiritual energy has been continuously generated, with a light aqua-blue luster and rich water vapor. Xie Zhouhei has also sat cross-legged in the array, with a solemn expression and closed eyes to rest. With the contact in the past few days, Xie Zhouhei also completely trusted Zhou Daocheng, allowing him to help arrange the environment for breakthrough and help him protect the way. After Zhou Daocheng arranged everything, he turned around and left the cave, found a place outside the cave to sit cross-legged, and protected Xie Zhouhei. At the same time, with a light flick of his right hand, the clouds in the sky began to move slightly, and a large amount of spiritual energy gathered. In the array, the rich spiritual energy also began to fluctuate, surrounding Xie Zhouhei's cave, directly reaching the level of the second level, and extremely rich. In such an environment, whether it is the attributes, quantity, purity, or richness of the spiritual energy, all have reached the most perfect state. And Xie Zhouhei also officially began to break through the foundation. Zhou Daocheng also sat cross-legged on the ground quietly. Ordinary people may not be able to feel the movement of a breakthrough, but strong people who have reached the foundation building stage can still detect the subtle changes in spiritual energy. Not long after, a figure came from a distance and walked to Zhou Daocheng. "Daocheng, is someone breaking through the foundation?" "Yes, big brother, a casual cultivator," Zhou Daocheng responded calmly. Zhou Daobai looked solemn and said, "Aren't you afraid that you can't control him after he breaks through?" Zhou Daocheng smiled faintly. "He can't make any trouble in my territory. As for whether he will submit to me, let's take a gamble. If he is willing to submit and become a member of Wugyufeng City, it would be great. If he is unwilling, let him go, no matter what, there will be no grudge. Anyway, the price I paid is not much, just treat it as a good relationship and a possibility. Zhou Daobai heard the words, thought for a moment, and nodded. He saw that his sixth brother was much more open-minded than him, and did not care about the gains and losses in front of him, and was willing to invest in the illusory future. Then you should pay more attention to yourself. The gap between the 9th level of qi refining and the foundation building is still very large. Zhou Daobai still reminded him. Okay, but with you here, big brother, he can't make any waves. Zhou Daobai smiled and said, yes, sixth brother, just find me if you have anything. Breaking through the foundation building stage is not something that can be completed in 1 or 2 days. It will be a long process. As a protector of the way, Zhou Daocheng naturally cannot leave easily. And during Zhou Daocheng's protection, the prototype of the guard team and hunting team of Wugyufeng City gradually appeared in front of the world. In particular, the 3 magic weapons attracted the attention of a large number of cultivators as soon as they appeared. Outside Wugyufeng City, 4 teams confronted each other. Among them, there was the hunting team led by Meng Yushan and Lu Chengzhou. Both of them were wearing flowing cloud silver scale armor, with their whole bodies covered in armor, and the flowing cloud patterns on their bodies showed their unique beauty. In addition to the magic weapons he often used, Meng Yushan also held a set of purple demon spider web. As for the other 2 teams, they were the old man from the Jin sect and the middle-aged beautiful woman from the Baihua Pavilion. They had also reached the 9th level of qi refining and were extraordinary in strength. The old man from the Jin sect licked his lips and looked at the magic weapons of Meng Yushan and others unscrupulously, without any fear. This was not the first time the 2 sides had met. There had been several conflicts before, but it was always the team from Wugyufengxi that suffered. Normally, if there were Meng Yushan and Lin Yuan in the hunting team, they would be able to rely on the power of the formation to remain invincible and even launch a counterattack. But if there were no 2 of them, most of the teams from Wugyufengxi would be at a disadvantage. After all, one side was a carefully selected hunting team from the forces, and the other side was just a team of casual cultivators with varying strengths. The strength gap was still very large. The old man of Jin sect leaned forward without any hesitation, and offered a golden jade bottle magic weapon in his hand, and a golden liquid with a foul smell flew quickly. This is the unique magic weapon of Jin sect, which stores powerful golden water inside. It has strong corrosiveness and its power should not be underestimated. Before, many people suffered a great loss under the golden water. Die. I let you run away several times before, this time you will die obediently under my golden water. The wanton laughter resounded through the forest. However, the next moment, a terrifying scene appeared in front of the old man of Jin sect. The golden water attached to the surface of the armor, only slightly corroding a layer of the epidermis, leaving some uneven black marks, and then there was no other movement. How is it possible? Taking advantage of this opportunity, Meng Yushan would not give up, and directly turned defense into offense, using the quicksand array plate and quicksand technique in his hand at the same time. In just a moment, the old man of Jin sect was trapped. Lu Chengzhou also did not hold back, and the sharp poison needle quickly attacked the controlled old man of Jin sect at a tricky angle. Daoyu, save me! The ancestor of Jin sect shouted in fear. The beautiful woman of Baihua Pavilion frowned, and the rattan whip quickly swung over, directly wrapping the old man of Jin sect, trying to pull him out. However, at the moment she made a move, an accident suddenly occurred. Boom! Bang bang bang! Hundreds of huge thorny vines appeared behind the middle-aged beauty, like a giant green python, quickly wrapping around the middle-aged beauty. There are others. The middle-aged beauty was horrified. With the magic weapon already sacrificed, she was completely unable to resist the Golden Spear 100 Vine formation. But this is not over yet. At the same time as the Golden Spear 100 Vine formation was launched, the Purple Demon Spider Web in Meng Yushan's hand also attacked, and the 2 methods of trapping the enemy took effect at the same time. The Golden Spear 100 Vine formation was on the periphery, and the Purple Demon Spider Web directly bound the body and pressed the middle-aged beauty of the Baihua Pavilion directly to the ground. After only a cup of tea, the toxins of the Purple Demon Spider Web began to invade the body, and the middle-aged beauty's struggles became smaller and smaller. On the other side, the old man of Jin sect was deeply trapped in the quicksand. Seeing the middle-aged beautiful woman trapped, he also showed despair. The other party's goal was not himself from the beginning, but the middle-aged beautiful woman of Baihua Pavilion who was supporting in the rear. As the middle-aged beautiful woman fell into a coma and was tied up and controlled, the old man of Jin sect was easy to deal with. Also use the purple demon spider web to tie her up and use the poison to make her fall into a coma and capture her alive without injury. Before the old man of Jin sect fell into a coma, he vaguely saw the third ninth level chi refining strongman walking out of the jungle behind him. This time, there are not only 2 hunting teams besieging them, but 3. Meng Yushin said calmly. Send these 2 people back to the market first, and then prepare to clean up other teams. What about the other cultivators in these teams? Lu Chengzhou asked. In addition to the 2 ninth level chi refining strongmen, each of their teams has 9 late stage chi refining cultivators. After thinking for a moment, Meng Yushin arranged, take them back together, maybe they can be useful to you. Okay. Then, the 20 Tide monks were taken directly back to Wugu Market. Under Wei Hanshin's arrangement, they were directly imprisoned in a cave. The team consisting of Meng Yushin, Lu Chengzhou and Yuan Zhang left the market again to clean up the teams in the surrounding Baihei market. With the first attempt, they also had a clear understanding of their own strength. The powerful defensive ability of Luyun Silver Scale Armor was enough for them to deal with various dangers and occupy an absolute advantage on the front battlefield. Just relying on Meng Yushin and Lu Chengzhou, it was enough to restrict the enemy, at least to make both sides evenly matched. And Yuan Zhang, who was hiding in the dark, took the Golden Spear 100 Vine formation, lent to him by Lin Yuan, and launched a surprise attack in the dark, and directly settled the matter. And their fighting style is not to kill the opponent with a fierce offensive. Instead, they used a lot of control methods and the poison of the purple demon spider web to capture them alive. Whether it was the quicksand formation, quicksand technique, golden spear 100 vine formation, or purple demon spider web, they were all based on control, making it almost impossible for the opponent to move. Such a routine immediately caught the enemy off guard. In just 1 week, the 3 of them used similar methods to wipe out 5 teams from Baihifang City again. They captured 7 ninth level chi refining masters and more than 60 late stage chi refining monks alive. As a large number of people disappeared, the team in Baihifang City finally became alert, began to gather the team, and sent the news back to Baihifang City. But it was too late. The figure of the cloud-patterned silver armor, like a ghost around the Wugyufang City, appeared in various places, hunting monks from Baihifang City. Especially after everyone in Baihifang City discovered them, Meng Yushin no longer concealed himself and appeared in the open to hunt down the team in Baihifang City. In order to be on the safe side, a 9th level chi refining expert was directly added, and the 4 of them acted together. And Wei Hanshin, who was in the rear, also fully supported this action and temporarily handed over most of the magic weapons to the hunting team. This also created an almost gorgeous team configuration. 4 9th level chi refining experts, each with a set of Luyun silver scale armor, 2 sets of purple demon spider web, were also used, and there were also 2 sets of first level top grade formations. At the same time, in order to support the actions of Wugyufang City, the Spirit Snake sect also provided a batch of first-level middle-grade, spirit-devouring ants, allowing Meng Yushin and others to enter the wild environment as if they were in an uninhabited place. The battle between the 2 major cities gradually came out from the secret place. Many casual cultivation teams around Wugyufang City can see a scene in the near future. Several monks wearing cloud-patterned silver armor fought with the monks from Baihifang City, and the 2 sides fought fiercely. Magical instruments, talismans, and formations emerged one after another. Whether it was day or night, one could hear the sound of swords and the roar of talismans and formations. At this moment, all the forces stationed in Wugyufang City understood. Facing the blockade and provocation of Baihifang City, Wugyufang City chose to confront head-on. Such courage once again ignited the confidence of the monks in Wugyufang City, including many monks who left, who also chose to return in the near future. They no longer had to worry about being attacked, because the monks in Baihifang City were already busy and eager to deal with the pursuit of Wugyufang City. As the fight between the 2 sides continued, the advantages of Meng Yushin and others finally emerged. They had a lot of resource supplies backed by Wugyufang City, and they were all equipped with cave-type formations. Even in the wild environment, they had safe caves for rest and supply. The team in Baihifang City did not have such good conditions. On the one hand, they were far away from Baihifang City, and after all kinds of resources were used up, they could not be effectively replenished. On the other hand, they not only had to deal with the pursuit and sneak attacks of Meng Yushin and others, but also had to face the monsters in the wild environment. Because there was no cave-type formation. To protect them, they had to be alert to the environment at all times and were always in a state of mental tension. It would be fine for 1 or 2 days, but once the time was extended, most of them were listless and their combat power was weakened. In such a situation, the cultivators on both sides were gaining and losing. The teams in Baihifang City were hit hard one after another, and many teams were captured alive. Even several 9th-level Qi refining masters were killed, and their morale was low. Faced with such a situation, no matter how unwilling Baihifang City was, it knew that it could not continue to fight. The teams that could be sent to encircle and suppress Wugyufang City were all elites in their respective sects, especially the 9th-level Qi refining masters, whose status and value were extraordinary. If the losses continued like this, even the foundation-building forces would not be able to withstand it. In the end, the bloody storm that broke out on the outskirts of Wugu Mountains ended with Baihifang City's voluntary withdrawal. And the dispute that lasted for several months finally came to an end. The final result was beyond everyone's expectations. As an old strongman, Baihifang City did not gain any benefits, but suffered heavy losses and left in disgrace. And Wugyufang City, as a brand new market, won the final victory and stood firm under tremendous pressure. This also means that the two major markets can truly compete with each other and become the two dominant forces in this area. After the strong strength shown by Wugyufang City, it was trusted by more monks. Many monks who left Wugyufang City returned again after receiving the news. The entire Wugyufang City resumed its prosperous development. As soon as Baihifang City evacuated, Wei Hanshin had already received the news and immediately notified Zhou Daocheng. This is definitely the best news for Wugyufang City today. This means that they gained a temporary advantage in the first round of competition and ushered in stable development. Zhou Daocheng breathed a long sigh of relief and felt relieved. If the other party refused to die and would rather suffer huge losses than cripple Wugyufang City, that would be the last thing she wanted to see. But fortunately, the 5 major forces in Baihifang City were not so courageous. After losing several strong men at the 9th level of Qi refining, they directly chose to evacuate. Zhou Daocheng smiled and murmured, "Yes, it is a good thing for us. Wugyufang City has just been established, and we need time to accumulate knowledge." Wei Hanshin nodded and said, "Indeed, after this battle, our Wugyufang City has become famous and can be compared with Baihifang City. Moreover, our Wugyufang City is in a more advantageous location. A large number of monks come here. As long as if we maintain stable development, our prospects will definitely exceed those of Baihifang City." Zhou Daocheng nodded slightly. Putting aside all human factors and looking at the development prospects of the two cities, Wugyufang City will definitely crush Baihifang City. However, Zhou Daocheng also knew that Baihifang City would not give up. Stealing people's money is like killing their parents, let alone the benefits brought by a city. Therefore, as long as Wugyufang City exists for one day, its relationship with Baihifang City will inevitably be on the same level. By the way, senior, there is one more thing that you need to decide. Wei Hanshin said. In the previous battle, we captured a group of monks from Baihifang City, numbering about 50 people. What do you think we should do with them? Zhou Daocheng raised his eyebrows, not expecting such an unexpected gain. More than 70 prisoners. The value it can bring must be far beyond imagination. Moreover, these people are all the elites among the 5 major forces in Baihifang City, and their representative significance is even more extraordinary. Zhou Daocheng thought for a while and asked, "How many of these 70 people are strong at the 9th level of Qi refining?" "The 5 are at the 9th level of Qi refining, and the rest are also at the later stages of Qi refining." Wei Hanshin replied. "Is there anyone with an unusual status?" Wei Hanshin thought for a while and said, "Many of them are the mainstays of their respective forces, and their status should be high." Hearing this, Zhou Daocheng raised a smile on his lips and asked lightly, "Mr. Wei, what do you think? How should we deal with these people?" Wei Hanshin was stunned, and after careful consideration for a moment, he said coldly, "We already have a life and death relationship with Baihifang City, so there is no need to hold back. I suggest that they all be executed to show that Wu Ji Yu thunderous means." Zhou Daocheng's eyes moved slightly, knowing that this kind-faced old man was also a decisive leader. Moreover, they have killed in a controlled manner and have rich experience. This is to take advantage of this victory to further strengthen Wugu's edge and suppress Baihifang City. However, Zhou Daocheng shook his head and said calmly, "Old Wei, I understand your thoughts, but today's Wugyufang City is not suitable for having a too loud reputation." Wei Hanshin frowned slightly. with a hint of doubt in his eyes, but after just thinking for a few minutes, he understood the reason. Senior, do you think that now that we are in the middle of a war, it is not suitable for a big conflict to break out? Zhou Daocheng nodded and said, this is only one reason, and there is another most important reason. That is that our foundation is too weak and cannot withstand too many wars. Rather than being sharp, we need a stable development environment. We need peace. Peace. Wei Hanshin chewed the word carefully and seemed to understand its meaning, but he did not understand it thoroughly. Zhou Daocheng said calmly, whether these more than 70 monks are killed or not, it doesn't matter to us. The most important thing is how to use them to obtain the greatest benefits. So what senior means is not to kill. Zhou Daocheng did not answer immediately. After thinking silently for a moment, he said, Old Wei, open another slave trading market in Fengxi and throw more than 70 people in. Kill or save? This question will be left to me. Consider it by Hefeng City. Quote. After the words fell, Wei Lao's old and cloudy eyes suddenly lit up. He slapped his thigh fiercely, and said excitedly, Senior, are you trying to kill someone? Zhou Daocheng just smiled and said, the price has been raised, so there is no need to give them face. Wei Hanshin was a little confused and said, if the price is too high, they probably won't buy it, or should they just pay it according to the market price? They should be able to make a lot of money. In response, Zhou Daocheng shook his head and explained, throwing them into the slave trading market does not really mean selling them as slaves. If we do this, then both parties will really fight to the death and there will be no change possible. Using this almost humiliating method to release him is simply rubbing the face of the 5 major forces in Baihifeng City on the ground. They will definitely not give up in the future, so it is better not to let him go. Zhou Daocheng's purpose is to obtain greater benefits and to win a better development environment for Wugyufeng City. After this suggestion, Wei Hanshin immediately understood Zhou Daocheng's deep meaning. Senior, do you want to use the sale of slaves to force the other party to come forward to negotiate with us? Zhou Daocheng nodded and said, let's do it as soon as possible. Only after the 2 parties have discussed it can we arrange the following matters. Okay, I'll do it right away. Wei Hanshin looked at the purple-robed figure in front of him, with a hint of wonder in his eyes. He could feel that the person in front of him was not too old, but his planning and layout methods were not immature at all. Don't be greedy for small profits, but pursue big plans. As Mr. Wei left, Zhou Daocheng also took a long breath and murmured to himself, I can finally be quiet for a while, and it's time to prepare. It's time to break through the foundation establishment. Unfortunately, the foundation establishment pill is still there. There is no solution. I hope there will be a good result this time. Baihifeng City. The 5 forces of Disha Sect, Jin Sect, Xian Pavilion, Fire Dragon Sect, and Baihua Pavilion gathered together again. This is the first time they have met so frequently in recent decades. The leader of the Jin Sect slammed the table, his strong anger evident in his words. These bastards in Wugyufeng City really did such a dirty thing and actually sold our monks as slaves. I will never let this go. The old man from the Disha Sect, whose face was also extremely ugly, but whose temper was relatively stable, said, now is not the time to lose your temper. Let's think about what to do. The elder of the Fire Dragon Sect also said angrily, have we caught their monks? At worst, we will sell them in the slave market and see what they do with them. As soon as these words came out, the faces of the others became even more uncertain. If the matter is so easy to solve, then why do they have to gather here to discuss whether to save it or not? The elder of Baihua Pavilion said coldly, that's the problem. They used magical weapons and formations to forcibly capture more than 70 of our monks. We didn't bring back any of them. What the hell? How can the gap be so big? Although our hunting team is very powerful, they even killed 2 9th-level Qi refining monks from Wugyufeng City. However, they could only kill them, but they could not capture them. When the elder of the Fire Dragon Sect heard this, he was immediately discouraged. Can we only spend spiritual stones to redeem it? But the trouble now is that we may not even be able to redeem ourselves. The old man of Disha Sect said coldly. Senior, what does this mean? The old man from the Disha Sect had a gloomy look, threw out a stack of paper, and said, this is their price, take a look for yourselves. Others looked curiously, and after just one glance, they couldn't help but burst out in disbelief. Mad, what kind of bullshit price is this? A 7th-level Qi refining monk, asking for 10,000. The 9th-level Qi refining elder wants 50,000 spirit stones. Why doesn't he go and grab it? The elder of the fire dragon sect suddenly blew his beard and stared in anger. However, when he saw the prices of other people, he let out a sigh and said, "Why are the prices of Baihua Pavilion and Zion Pavilion so cheap? Are you secretly stuffing them with benefits? Stop farting." The elder of Baihua Pavilion scolded, his face extremely ugly. "I hope he bids a high price, so that things won't be so troublesome." Zion Pavilion also nodded, because among the prices in front of him, all the young and beautiful female monks were priced at 1 spirit stone. This is the real murderous act. Once the slave market officially opens, they will naturally know exactly what will happen to these female monks who put a price on 1 spirit stone. The old man of Disha sect sighed deeply and said, "It seems that the other party does not really want to sell slaves." The leader of the Jin sect nodded slightly. "Yes, if you really want to sell it, you won't put such an incredible price. Since you did this, there must be other purposes." The elder of Zion Pavilion frowned and said, "Looking at the other party's intention, he plans to talk to us. Putting more than 70 people from Baihifang City on the slave market shows that the price is unrealistic. It is definitely not just for humiliation, but for other purposes. The major forces in Baihifang City can understand the meaning with a little thought." The leader of the Disha sect lowered his eyes, and after a long silence, he said calmly, "Well, since the other party wants to talk, I will go there in person. It seems that the people behind Wugu. The means are not simple." Others were silent when they heard the words. From the initial vow to ignore Wugyufang City at all, to now suffering a big loss and taking the initiative to negotiate peace, only a few months have passed. Although they are unwilling to admit it, the fact is already before them. This new Wugyufang City has completely taken root and has become a serious problem for them. The head of the Disha sect didn't have much time to hesitate, because more than 70 monks had already been put on the slave trading market. That night we hit the road directly and headed to Wugyufang City again. 10 days later, he formally met Zhou Daocheng outside the formation in Wugyufang City. Zhou Daocheng also didn't expect that the other party was so fast, coming almost non-stop. It seems that as a powerful force that has been passed down for hundreds of years, their face is still extremely important. If it can be resolved in a more peaceful way, they are not willing to break their face. And this is exactly what Zhou Daocheng hopes. This time, the leader of the Disha sect did not enter the formation. Instead, he and Zhou Daocheng stood on the inside and outside of the formation, ensuring a safe distance. Similarly, this is also a sign of respect and fear, which at least shows that in the heart of the Disha sect master, he has been treated as a fellow Taoist of equal strength. Lord of Fog Valley, long time no see. Zhou Daocheng was dressed in a purple robe and still wore a bronze mask, and said calmly, "No need to say more, just talk about the business." The head of the Disha sect smiled and said, "Since fellow Taoist disciples are so impatient, I will just tell you that for those 70 captive monks, our Baihifang City can provide 30,000 spiritual stones to redeem their lives." Both parties knew each other's purpose, so they went directly to the topic without too many pleasantries. However, when he heard the price given by the other party, Zhou Daocheng sneered and said, 30,000 spirit stones. Are the elite disciples of the 5 foundation building forces only worth this price? Or, Your Excellency has no intention of having a good discussion with me? Quote. The leader of Disha sect also knew that he was in the wrong, and said with a faint smile, "This is just the price I proposed. If you are not satisfied, we can continue to negotiate." 30,000 spirit stones is indeed not a small amount, but for the 5 forces in Baihifang City, it is definitely not too much. Even strictly speaking, just taking the price of more than 70 monks themselves is already more than 30,000 spiritual stones. The other party obviously didn't have much sincerity when they reported this number. Zhou Daocheng glanced at this person coldly and said, "Tell me your bottom line. Since you choose to sit down and talk, let's have a good talk. There is no need to continue testing." The head of the Disha sect nodded slightly and said, "Since you are so candid, I won't say much more. For 50,000 spirit stones, this matter is over." Zhou Daocheng still shook his head. "Your Excellency, please don't be too greedy." The Disha sect leader frowned. Zhou Daocheng lowered his eyes and said, 50,000 spirit stones is actually not impossible, but you have to add a foundation building pill. Hearing this, the leader of the Disha sect turned green. Impossible, let's not talk about whether this price is acceptable or not, and there is no foundation building pill on the market now. You must go to the market of other Zifu forces to buy it. Please change the conditions. Then 120,000 spirit stones. The leader of the Disha sect's face became darker. Don't ask for too much. HMPH, more than 70 powerful slaves, I think they should be very popular. This price is too high, even if I agree, the other forces will not agree. Quote. The two people's discussion lasted for a whole day. It was not until the next morning that both sides were dry-mouthed and their eyes were bloodshot, and they came to a conclusion that both sides were satisfied with. The final result included a total of 3 agreements. First, Baihei Market will take out 70,000 spirit stones to redeem 70 cultivators. This is the final bottom line that Zhou Daocheng tested after repeated discussions. If it is more, it is likely that they will not be able to reach an agreement. Second, both parties will swear with their hearts that within the next 10 years, the two major markets will not fight with swords. However, considering that there will be more or less friction in normal times, another restriction was added to this agreement. Fighting is allowed in the qi refining stage, but it is not allowed to involve the combat power of the foundation establishment stage. This agreement is acceptable to both parties. Perhaps at the beginning, Baihei Market tried to directly seize Wugu Market with its powerful strength, but after a series of setbacks, it just gave up this idea. Whether it is this terrifying second-level upper-grade natural maze or the foundation-building cultivators hidden in the Fog Valley, they have to be wary. Moreover, now it is in the era of war in Qingshan sect, and the foundation-building masters are not in the sect, so they have to act carefully, so they are even more unwilling to provoke Wugu. The same is true for Zhou Daocheng. He may not be able to survive a fight, and he may not dare to kill, so peaceful coexistence must be the best option. The third agreement further enhances the possibility of peaceful coexistence between the two parties. From now on, the two cities will coexist peacefully, but if other powerful forces appear within the sphere of influence of the two cities, both parties will need to work together to expel them. This means that Baihifang City has accepted the existence of Wugyufang City, but it is also preventing this situation from happening again in the future. In the future, if other forces want to take root in this land like Wugyufang City does today, they will inevitably be attacked by both sides. Therefore, this agreement is to safeguard the interests of both parties and is beneficial to both parties. Zhou Daocheng also readily agreed. Although I didn't get the coveted foundation establishment pill, the final result was already very good. Moreover, he knew very well that it was almost impossible to obtain the foundation establishment pill from the 5 major forces with only more than 70 casual cultivators. Because these more than 70 monks combined are not worth one foundation establishment pill. Although the price of the foundation establishment pill in the market is only 50,000 spirit stones, everyone knows that it is not difficult to accumulate 50,000 spirit stones. The real difficulty is how to buy a foundation establishment pill. However, when all the discussions were over and Zhou Daocheng was about to return, the old man of Disha sect suddenly stopped him. Lord of Wugu, I was talking to you on behalf of Baihifang City just now, but now, I want to discuss another cooperation with you in my personal capacity as the head of the Disha sect. I wonder if you are interested. Zhou Daocheng raised his eyebrows and turned his head curiously. What kind of cooperation? Tell me. The leader of the Disha sect showed an incomprehensible smile and said, if I guessed correctly, Senior, Flame Snake Fairy, should be in the Foggy Valley, right? Quote. Zhou Daocheng was not very surprised. The red snake had already taken action when they last met, and the Disha sect master could more or less guess the identity of the person who took action from the details. Not bad. Any questions? Zhou Daocheng replied calmly. The leader of the Disha sect smiled and said, Fellow Taoist, don't worry, this matter has nothing to do with Flame Snake Lady, and I am not interested in causing trouble with this person. The cooperation I want to discuss is with Flame Serpent Lady, a suitor is concerned. Quote. Zhou Daocheng looked stunned and frowned quietly. He had a vague guess in his heart, but he still asked, who? Bone Flag Panhe. Zhou Daocheng showed a clear expression under his bronze mask. This is indeed the only person who can be remembered by the leader of the Disha sect and who is also the suitor of Flame Snake Lady. Zhou Daocheng's eyes narrowed slightly and he said, have you got a grudge? The head of the Disha sect raised a sneer on his lips and said, this matter should not be a secret. After breaking through the foundation building period, Panhe once took advantage of my retreat to force his way into our Disha sect's ancestral land and robbed a second-level mid-grade item. The magical weapon is the bone flag he is using now. Zhou Daocheng frowned slightly. He didn't expect that there was such a secret in it. It really amazed him. I didn't expect that Panhe would be so bold and dare to enter the Disha sect to snatch the treasure, and he actually succeeded, which shows that this person is very capable. With the strength of your Disha sect, are you going to let this person get away with it? Zhou Daocheng asked. HMPH. Of course it's impossible. I tried to capture him many times, but he escaped by chance. Now as his strength becomes stronger, it's getting harder and harder to catch him. As he spoke, there was a look of resentment on the brows of the Disha sect leader, and he almost gritted his teeth and said, so this time I want to discuss cooperation with fellow Taoist. If this person comes to Wugu again, I hope that fellow Taoist can take action and trap him in the formation. You can leave the rest to me. If the plan succeeds, my Disha sect will offer 50,000 spirit stones, and I owe you a favor. Hearing this, Zhou Daocheng's eyes turned, and his mind was full of thoughts. The temptation offered by the other party is indeed very great. As long as Pan He is trapped, he can get 50,000 spirit stones and the friendship of Disha sect without taking action. And aside from these interests, the existence of Pan itself is a huge unstable factor. This person had shown great hostility towards him before. If the woman with the red snake tattoo hadn't stopped him in time, he might have started a fight. And vaguely, the woman with the red snake tattoo also intended to use Pan He to suppress and restrict herself. This is also a very bad signal. If there was only the woman with the red snake tattoo, she could barely suppress her with her own formation and her elder brother Zhou Daobai. It's hard to say how the situation will develop if another Ponk is added to the mix. Zhou Daocheng thought for a long time and weighed the pros and cons. The Disha sect's middle team did not rush him and just waited silently. After a long time, Zhou Daocheng slowly raised his head and said, I can agree to your cooperation, but the specific cooperation content needs to be changed. You want the lion to open his mouth again. The head of the Disha sect twitched his mouth and took a step back in fright. He still vividly remembers the discussions he had just had all day and night, and he is really worried that he, an old man, will die of exhaustion here. Hearing this, Zhou Daocheng's face suddenly darkened. What do you mean, the lion opens its mouth again? This is simply an insult to his character. With a cold glare, Zhou Daocheng said calmly, what I mean is, exchange cooperation for a transaction. What's the meaning? Zhou Daocheng showed a meaningful smile and said, I can help you as much as possible with Pan He's matter. But I also need your help for one thing. Let's help each other and gain each other's friendship. How about it? The leader of the Disha sect did not agree readily, nor did he show a look of surprise. After several contacts, he knew that the person in front of him might be young, but he was very cunning and had great means. If he was not careful, he might fall into a trap. In addition, he could argue with him for a whole night for tens of thousands of spirit stones before, but now he didn't even want 50,000 spirit stones. He really couldn't believe it. After a moment of silence, the leader of the Disha sect was still worried and said, you should tell me your request first. I'm not sure I can help you complete it. Just do your best. Zhou Daocheng said indifferently. Do your best is a later story. Tell me what it is first. The leader of the Disha sect refused to give in at all, and looked determined. Zhou Daocheng was also helpless, feeling that his character was not respected. Helplessly, Zhou Daocheng had to clear his throat and said, I heard that the place where your sect is located is an extremely yin place with a special kind of natural treasure, which seems to be called, earthly evil yin qi. The leader of the Disha sect frowned slightly and nodded undeniably. The location of the Disha sect is not a secret. It is a very rare and extremely yin spiritual vein that can breed precious Disha yin qi. This, Disha yin qi, is actually an extremely dangerous gas. If the yin qi invades the body without any precautions, it will cause irreversible damage or even death. However, everything in the world has advantages and disadvantages. If special means are used, this dangerous, Disha yin qi, also has very strange effects. The most important thing is that it can be used to refine the body. For body refining cultivators, it has extraordinary value and significance. Secondly, it can also be used as a material for refining instruments, formations, and talismans. Even some powerful sects can use this Disha yin qi to refine powerful puppets and corpses. In short, this is an extremely precious resource in the Disha sect. Lord of Fog Valley, do you want earthly evil yin qi? Zhou Daocheng nodded and said, if I succeed in helping your sect to kill Pan He, I need 10 strands of earthly evil yin qi. As soon as these words came out, the face of the leader of the earthly evil sect turned black. Earthly evil yin qi is extremely valuable. Even the extremely yin spirit vein of the earthly evil sect can only produce 1 strand in 3 years. As a result, he asked for 10 strands directly. Impossible, this price is too high. I can only give you 5 strands at most. The leader of the earthly evil sect thought for a long time and said this number with gritted teeth. Okay. To the surprise of the leader of the earthly evil sect, Zhou Daocheng actually agreed directly without any hesitation. However, Zhou Daocheng really didn't plan to ask for more. The reason why he wanted earthly evil yin qi was not because he had a use for it, but simply because the earthly evil yin qi was expensive and there was definitely no harm in taking it. In addition, he practiced the Wu Tu Kun Yu Gong, and also had a certain part of body refining, which was certain to be useful in the future. As for the quantity, he also knew that this kind of item was extremely rare. It would be fine if it was a little less, but if it was more, the Disha sect would probably not be able to give it. The two sides reached a deal, and the leader of the Disha sect returned to Baihei market with more than 70 cultivators, and Zhou Daocheng also returned to Wugu with satisfaction. It can be said that through this conversation between the two sides, almost all the contradictions were resolved, ushering in a great peace. Next, there may still be various frictions between the two major markets, but at least it will not rise to the war of the foundation building period. Even if possible, the two sides will reach a certain degree of cooperation. After all, the two sides are so close, there must be contact between them, and even the shops in the two markets will have more or less cooperation. What's more, Zhou Daocheng knew in his heart that although Wugu market has unique conditions, its foundation is still too weak. Whether it is Strength Foundation or Business Development Foundation, it is far inferior to Baihei market. The reason why Wugu went to Shangdang again was because 5 foundation building masters were removed from the 5 major forces. Otherwise, it was still unknown who would be stronger and who would be weaker in this dispute. Therefore, if we can learn from the experience of the old Taoist priests in Baihei Fengshi during the cooperation process, it will also be of great benefit to Wugyu Fengshi. And next, what Zhou Daocheng has to do is more about the development within Wugyu Fengshi. To be more specific, it can also be said that the Zhou family, Shanhai sect, and Wugyu Fengshi are jointly developing. The big platform of Wugyu Fengshi has been established, and great monks have settled in, making it a relatively prosperous market. What needs to be done next is to gradually improve the details and enrich this market, so as to bring greater benefits. On the one hand, we need to let the Zhou family and the forces under his command have a higher voice in this market. On the other hand, we need to obtain more cultivation resources and spirit stones. Zhou Daocheng walked to the second valley while thinking. A small part of the spiritual fields here have been rented or sold, but the remaining large part belongs to Zhou Daocheng himself. During these days, Zhou Daocheng was constantly thinking about what kind of spiritual plants he should plant to maximize the benefits. The spiritual fields here can always maintain the quality of the first-class upper grade because they are always nourished by spiritual energy, so they can be planted in large quantities of first-class upper grade spiritual medicines. After wandering around the market for a long time and looking at a large number of spiritual medicine seeds, Zhou Daocheng still did not make a decision. In fact, there are not many spiritual medicines for him to choose from. He can either plant cultivation resources, such as earth essence grass. However, high-quality earth attribute spiritual plants are not common, and the environment in the second valley is not particularly suitable. Strictly speaking, the cultivation environment formed by the thick earth spiritual array is sufficient for use at present. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng can only choose to plant other crops. After thinking again and again, he decided to plant array material crops. Even the type has not changed, and he still plants yellow thorn vines. This crop, which does not require a high production environment, is relatively easy to raise, and has a high value, is really the best choice. The value of the Golden Spear 100 vine array is also very high among the first-class upper-grade arrays. At present, the yellow thorn vines in the Balin Lake Valley are not enough, especially if you want to refine the Golden Spear 100 vine formation, the demand is even greater. So planting some in the second valley is also a very good choice. However, in addition to the second valley, Zhou Daocheng also has many other areas that can be used to grow spiritual plants. The outer area of the Wugu Mountains. The outer area of the mountains is mostly rocky and complex, and it is difficult to grow crops. However, as the master of the formation, Zhou Daocheng can use the formation to a certain extent to slightly change the terrain and create an area suitable for growing spiritual medicines and raising spiritual birds. Zhou Daocheng also had to feel fortunate that he had a natural maze. If it was an ordinary second-level formation, it would be difficult to do this. The natural formation, plus the second-level maze, can change the terrain, which is an extremely amazing method. If Zhou Daocheng remembered correctly, only Jindan cultivators have the means to move mountains and fill the sea, and change the world, but it is not using formations, but using a spell called mountain moving technique. However, the mountain moving technique of Jindan cultivators is far from being as simple as changing the terrain. It can move spiritual veins, spiritual eyes, spiritual stone veins, etc. Changing the terrain is only the most common function. Of course, Zhou Daocheng doesn't know much about these situations. Turning his eyes back to the foggy valley mountains in front of him, he can clearly see that the spiritual energy in the mountains outside the formation is extremely rich, almost reaching the second level upper grade. In terms of the overall environment, it is much better than the underground cave. Moreover, there is a formation to protect it, the environment is safer, and the clouds and fog can be used to block the sight of outsiders, so it is not easy to be discovered and coveted. So Zhou Daocheng first instructed Meng Yushan to plant yellow thorn vines in the forest field of the second valley, and then went to the mountains outside the foggy valley alone. Looking around, you can see that this second-level natural formation covers a large area of mountains, even wider than imagined, stretching for dozens of kilometers. This is the characteristic of natural formations, with a wide coverage area and a strong momentum formed by the formation. This is difficult for human array masters to do, and generally speaking, no one does it. Except for some powerful sects, they need to use arrays to cover the entire sect, which will exhaust manpower and material resources to arrange super large arrays. Zhou Daocheng looked around and finally chose the mountains on the north and south sides, intending to open up a spiritual field on both sides. Mainly because the east and west sides are not convenient. The west is the entrance to the fog valley, and there are many monks coming and going, which is not suitable for planting. Needless to say, the east is infinitely close to the east-grade wilderness vein, and there are often powerful monsters passing by, which is too dangerous. Therefore, only the north and south directions are the most suitable. First came to the north, where there are mostly cliffs or long and narrow valley cracks. Although the concentration of spiritual energy is very high, there are few spiritual medicines and monsters. Zhou Daocheng looked around carefully, found a relatively wide area, and then began to manipulate the formation to change the terrain. I saw layers of clouds and mist covering the area, and the patterns of the formation were running huge spiritual energy, which changed this extremely heavy land at a slow speed. After a cup of tea, the clouds gradually dispersed, and the scene in front of me also changed drastically. I saw that a spacious valley was formed in the cliffs and rock walls that were originally squeezed together without any gaps. The peaks and cliffs around the valley were squeezed more tightly. From the sky, it seemed like a hole smashed by a meteorite. This is an absolutely safe valley. Whether it is a human cultivator or a monster, it is difficult to pass through the layers of fog and walk to this area. In addition, in the process of moving the terrain, Zhou Daocheng also specially dug out the deeper soil from the ground for planting. Although the soil deep underground does not contain a lot of spiritual energy, as long as it is warmed in the spiritual energy for a period of time, it can gradually become a spiritual field. In the concentration of spiritual energy of the second grade upper grade, it may be difficult to reach the level of the second grade upper grade spiritual field, but it is still very easy to reach the second grade. As for the spiritual plants to be planted, Zhou Daocheng had already anticipated it in his mind, mainly spiritual grains, brewing materials, and formation materials. The second grade spiritual grains have extremely rich spiritual energy, especially for qi refining cultivators, which are almost equivalent to elixirs with weaker medicinal power. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng chose a kind of spiritual grain called purple jade spiritual rice. The quality of the grain is the second grade lower grade. When mature, it is light purple and crystal clear like jade. It is a very high grade spiritual rice. It is said that if it is planted in large quantities and the planting environment is good, some second grade medium grade spiritual rice may appear. However, it is almost impossible to plant in large quantities because Zhou Daocheng does not have too many seeds. The purple jade spiritual rice seeds in his hand were purchased from a casual cultivator. He also accidentally found a few plants in the wild, so the number is not large. After a rough estimate, only about 1 acre can be planted. Although he felt a little regretful, Zhou Daocheng was content. After all, it was already very difficult to obtain the second-level spiritual valley. As for the remaining spiritual fields, they could only be used to grow other crops. Zhou Daocheng planned to plant 2 kinds of wine-making spiritual medicines. One was moonlight grass. Moonlight brew had been brewed for several years. It was a very good quality spiritual wine, and the price was relatively cheap. The quality was only the first-level medium grade, and most cultivators could afford it. Therefore, Zhou Daocheng decided to plant a large number of them. However, in this spiritual medicine garden valley, because the concentration of spiritual energy was very rich, moonlight grass could grow anywhere, so Zhou Daocheng planted moonlight grass in the corners as much as possible, and scattered some seeds wherever there was soil. As for the other wine-making spiritual medicine, it was called red lye flower, a second-level low-grade spiritual medicine, which could brew a second-level low-grade spiritual wine, liexinzui. The formula of this spiritual wine was bought at a high price from a 9th-level qi refining casual cultivator not long after Zhou Daocheng opened the market. This is the convenience of opening a market. Once valuable items appear, Zhou Daocheng can get them first and buy them. Red lye flower is also a common second-level spiritual medicine, which belongs to the fire attribute cultivation material. The same is true for liexinzui. It is like a burning fire when it enters the throat. It is extremely strong. After taking it, weaker cultivators may directly burn their lungs and are likely to be injured. But for powerful fire attribute cultivators, it is an extremely precious spiritual object, which is very beneficial to improving their strength. And many casual cultivators who are wandering on the edge of life and death especially like this kind of strong liquor. Considering that the market for this kind of spiritual wine is good, Zhou Daocheng also bought some seeds and planted some red lye flowers. The number of seeds is still not much, only about 2 acres are planted. After planting purple jade spiritual rice, moon grass, and red flowers, there is still more than half of the land left in this spiritual medicine garden. Zhou Daocheng plans to use all of it to plant array materials. First, it is still the yellow thorn vine. In the second valley, some yellow thorn vines of lower quality are planted, and in this spiritual medicine garden, yellow thorn vines of higher quality are cultivated as much as possible. In addition, Zhou Daocheng also plans to move the purple air green spirit bamboo here. The second-level inferior spiritual spring can no longer meet the growth environment of the purple air green spirit bamboo. Not only can it not continue to improve its quality, but it will no longer reproduce. Zhou Daocheng is still very troubled by this situation. According to the last experience, when the purple air green spirit bamboo breaks through to the second level, there is a probability of reproduction and growing green spirit bamboo shoots. Unfortunately, the remaining 4 first-level, purple air green spirit bamboo, have not yet broken through the limit of the second level. Zhou Daocheng also wants to try to change the environment for them, which may bring new development. However, he cannot plant purple air green spirit bamboo for the time being, and needs to return to Balin Lake. Both the yellow thorn vine and the purple air green spirit bamboo belong to the formations that have been arranged before, and the effect is quite good. As for the remaining land, Zhou Daocheng decided to plant a new spiritual plant. The quantity was not large, and the quality was only first-grade superior, black puppet wood. This was originally a very good puppet material that could be used to refine first-grade superior puppets. Logically speaking, Zhou Daocheng could not use it at all. However, Zhou Daocheng accidentally discovered that there is a first-class top-grade formation in the formation book, called puppet wood formation. It is to refine the black puppet wood, contain it in the formation, and then use the formation pattern to transform puppets within the formation range. This kind of puppet made by the formation also has good strength, and because of the addition of black puppet wood, the puppet's physique is extremely strong. Except for the low intelligence and lack of combat skills, there are almost no other weaknesses, and it can be used as a 9th-level qi refining strongman. And in a puppet wood formation, a total of 2 puppets can be transformed, which is equivalent to 2 9th-level qi refining strongmen, and their strength is also very good. However, strictly speaking, the power of this formation is actually far inferior to the golden spear 100 vine formation, and the purple qi green spirit sword formation. The 2 first-class top-grade puppets seem to be powerful, but if they face a 9th-level qi refining strongman, it is actually difficult to hurt each other. However, Zhou Daocheng's real trump card is not the formation itself, but the fusion formation. Among the first-class formations, there is an extremely special formation. If it can be integrated with the Kuimu formation, it may be possible to make this first-class formation reach the level of the second level. The first-class formation has the strength to rival the foundation building masters. This is almost impossible, but Zhou Daocheng understood that there was absolutely no exaggeration in it, but it could indeed be achieved, but there were many conditions that needed to be met, so it was difficult to achieve. After thinking for a long time, Zhou Daocheng decided to give it a try. Perhaps it was really possible to create an extremely powerful formation. And the black puppet wood was just the first step of the attempt, and it was also the simplest step. As for whether it would succeed in the end, Zhou Daocheng himself was not absolutely sure, but it was worth a try. It took Zhou Daocheng nearly 2 days to take care of the spiritual medicine garden, located in the north of Wugyufang City. A total of 6 crops were planted: purple jade spiritual rice, moon grass, red fierce flower, yellow thorn vine, black puppet wood, and purple air green spirit bamboo. At present, the first 5 have been planted, and the purple air green spirit bamboo is still in Balin Lake. Now in front of us, the neatly arranged large areas of spiritual fields make this wild valley show a hint of vibrant life. And under intentional control, the clouds and mists in the sky full of spiritual energy are also shrouded in the spiritual medicine garden. The moist mist, accompanied by rich spiritual energy, slowly penetrated into the soil. Even without the need to irrigate the spiritual spring, the quality of the soil was constantly improving. Zhou Daocheng looked at this scene and felt quite satisfied. His body and mind felt much better. However, the task was not yet completed. Zhou Daocheng continued to come to the south of Wugyufang City. He also found an area with a suitable location, and then mobilized the formation to slightly transform the terrain, so that it would form a valley suitable for breeding spiritual beasts. Here, he also planned to build a spirit beast garden. However, although it was easy to open up a site for the spirit beast garden, Zhou Daocheng had not yet made plans for what kind of spiritual beast to breed. Now, Zhou Daocheng actually did not have many spiritual beasts that could be used for breeding. The first was the mirage cloud python. This little snake could be brought here and lived in this valley. Secondly, there was the ironback barbarian bear, which could be brought from the white scale lake. It was also a powerful force and could help a lot. Finally, there is the purple armored devouring spirit ant. As the spiritual beast with the greatest potential in Zhou Daocheng's hands and the most likely to become a trump card, it is natural to bring it to the Fog Valley. After thinking about it carefully, Zhou Daocheng still felt that it was necessary to return to Balin Lake and bring some important things. So, without much hesitation, Zhou Daocheng made some arrangements and set off directly to return to Balin Lake. The 10-day journey passed in a flash, and after a few months, Zhou Daocheng returned to Balin Lake again. It was still the sparkling lake surface and the quiet and peaceful valley. Everything was developing in an orderly manner. It seems that the safety of the Balin Lake station was still guaranteed while most of the combat forces went to the Fog Valley market. But it is also true that although Zhou Daocheng, Meng Yushan, and Lin Yuan are gone, Qin Lai and the iron-backed barbarian bear are still stationed here, and their strength should not be underestimated. Moreover, the formation left by Zhou Daocheng is not a decoration. As long as there are monsters or cultivators approaching, it is enough to discover and counterattack in the first time. After taking a look at the situation and making sure that nothing unexpected had happened, Zhou Daocheng returned to the underground cave. After leaving for a while, the cave had been stained with a thin layer of dust, and the luminous stone emitted a faint light, illuminating this not-so-big cave. The spiritual spring eye was still gurgling, and the wisps of misty spiritual energy enveloped the spiritual spring eye, like a fairy spring. The purple air green spiritual bamboo growing on the side grew very vigorously, but the level did not change much. It seemed that the spiritual energy born from the spiritual spring eye could not meet the growth of the purple air green spiritual bamboo. In the spiritual spring eye, the black pattern lotus was the same. Although the breath of life was stronger and the quality was slightly improved, it would take some time to break through the second level. After thinking about it, Zhou Daocheng chose to dig out the purple air green spiritual bamboo with its roots, and the black pattern lotus continued to be raised in the spiritual spring eye. Although the concentration of spiritual energy in the Fog Valley was higher, it was not necessarily more suitable for aquatic spiritual plants such as the black pattern lotus than the spiritual spring eye. As for the purple air green spirit bamboo, it is actually not suitable to be planted underground, which is not good for its growth, so it is better to take it away naturally. After digging out all 5 purple air green spirit bamboos, Zhou Daocheng also checked the situation of the purple armored spirit swallowing ants. He was surprised to find that the number of ants had increased a lot, and there were nearly hundreds of them. It seems that in the past few months, the queen ant has laid eggs several times again, which is a very good phenomenon. However, these hundreds of purple armored spirit swallowing ants are all only the strength of the first grade lower grade, and now they are still unable to shoulder the heavy responsibility. But Zhou Daocheng is confident that as long as there is sufficient spiritual energy, the purple armored spirit swallowing ants can brew enough spiritual honey, and they can continue to multiply and grow, and eventually become a powerful ant colony. The environment of the underground cave is actually not very suitable for the development of the purple armored spirit swallowing ants. Because it is underground, and it is also underground under an island in the middle of a lake. Therefore, the ant colony has no place to collect spiritual honey. Moreover, Zhou Daocheng also specifically explained that they are not allowed to collect the spiritual liquid in the eyes of the spiritual spring, for fear that they will waste it. Therefore, the ant colony has always relied on the spiritual honey provided by Zhou Daocheng to survive, and the amount provided is not much, which has affected the reproduction speed. However, this situation will be perfectly solved once it reaches the Fog Valley. Not only is the concentration of spiritual energy in the Fog Valley more concentrated, but there are also many spiritual plants, spiritual medicines, spiritual flowers, and even monsters growing around it. These spiritual things can be collected by the spirit-devouring ants and brewed into precious spiritual honey. At the same time, with Zhou Daocheng escorting them, they can also ensure their safety in the early stage, so that they can develop rapidly. Compared with this, it is a world of difference. While thinking, Zhou Daocheng packed up the purple armored spirit-swallowing ants. Because the spirit beasts cannot be stored in the storage bag, Zhou Daocheng used a package to directly pack all the purple armored spirit-swallowing ants and carried them with him. As for the fertile spiritual soil, it was also packed into the storage bag and taken back to the Fog Valley. Not only the fertile spiritual soil in the ant nest, but also the remaining fertile spiritual soil in the warehouse, as well as other materials, Zhou Daocheng also packed them all. This time he came back with a total of dozens of storage bags, just to bring all these useful things to the Fog Valley. After packing everything, Zhou Daocheng left the underground cave with satisfaction. It can be imagined that he will stay in the Fog Valley for a long time in the future, and his focus will be there. When he walked out of the underground cave and was about to leave, he saw a figure in a white long skirt standing in a corner of the island. Zhou Daocheng raised his eyebrows. He almost forgot that his wife was still here. Touching his nose awkwardly, Zhou Daocheng still took the initiative to greet. "Long time no see, Yunji." Zhao Yunji frowned slightly, looked Zhou Daocheng up and down, and said with a strange look, "What are you doing secretly?" "I thought there was a thief in the house." Secretly. "I thought there was a thief in the house." Secretly.